When a billionaire's estranged mother collapsed in a snowstorm, the waitress who saved her life had no idea she was about to expose the fraud that would destroy everything, or that the single dad who walked through that door would force her to choose between hiding forever and risking it all one more time. If you're watching this story unfold from your corner of the world, drop a comment below with your city name. I want to see just how far this tale travels. Hit that like button, settle in, and let me take you through a night that started with kindness and ended with everything burning down. The snow had been falling for 6 hours straight when the power died for the third time that night. Lila Hart stood behind the counter at Maple Street Diner, watching the lights flicker back on with a mechanical hum that never sounded quite right anymore. Outside, Burlington had turned into something out of a disaster movie. Wind howling hard enough to bend the old streetlights, snow piling up past the curbs, cars abandoned at angles that would have been funny if anyone had been laughing. Nobody was laughing. She'd sent Marcus, the line cook, home 2 hours ago when the weather report upgraded from severe to don't be stupid. He'd argued, but Lila knew he had a newborn at home and a wife who didn't need to spend the night wondering if he'd made it back alive. She was good at that, knowing when other people needed to leave, when they needed to be somewhere safer. Staying behind herself? That was different. The diner was supposed to close at 10. It was 1:15 midnight now, and Lila was wiping down the same section of counters she'd already cleaned twice, buying time she didn't need for reasons she couldn't name. The radio in the kitchen crackled with emergency updates. Roads closed, shelters opening, stay inside if you can. She could close up, lock the door, walk the 4 blocks to her apartment through snow that was already past her knees. She didn't. The door rattled. Wind, probably. The whole building shook when the gusts came hard enough. Lila glanced up anyway, just in case, and that's when she saw her. An elderly woman stood on the other side of the glass, one hand pressed against the door, the other clutching a purse like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her coat was expensive. Lila could tell that much even through the snow caking the fabric. But it hung open, and her hair was plastered to her face in wet, graying strands. She wasn't wearing gloves. Her lips had gone pale. Lila dropped the rag and ran. The wind nearly ripped the door out of her hands when she yanked it open. Cold air slammed into her chest hard enough to steal her breath. Come in, oh my God!" The woman stumbled forward more than stepped, and Lila caught her by the elbow, shocked at how light she felt, how much she was shaking. Up close, she looked worse. Her skin had that grayish tint people got when hypothermia started setting in, and her eyes were unfocused, confused. "I'm sorry," the woman said, her voice thin and unsteady. "I didn't mean to. I got turned around and I couldn't." "Don't apologize. Jesus, sit down before you fall down." Lila guided her to the nearest booth, the one by the window where the heater vent blew warmest. The woman sank onto the cracked vinyl seat like her legs had given up, and Lila was already moving, grabbing the emergency blankets she kept in the back, the ones she'd bought after that homeless kid nearly froze on the steps last February. She wrapped the first blanket around the woman's shoulders, then the second, tucking the edges in tight. "When's the last time you ate something?" The woman blinked at her. I'm not sure." "Okay, don't move." Lila turned back toward the kitchen, her mind already running through what she had left. Soup. She'd made chicken soup earlier, the good kind with actual vegetables and the broth Marcus swore by. There was half a pot still warm on the stove. She ladled out a bowl, grabbed a spoon, poured hot tea from the carafe she'd kept going all night. When she came back, the woman was crying. Not loud, not dramatic, just tears running down her face while she stared at her hands like she didn't recognize them. "Hey," Lila set the soup down gently. "You're safe now. You're okay." "I got lost." The woman's voice cracked. "I thought I knew the way, but everything looked different and I couldn't find—" She stopped, swallowed hard. "I'm sorry. You must think I'm ridiculous." "I think you're cold and scared, and that's not ridiculous." Lila slid into the booth across from her, keeping her voice low and steady. "Drink some tea. Warm up. Then we'll figure out where you need to be." The woman's hand shook when she lifted the cup, but she managed to take a sip. Then another. Some of the tension in her shoulders eased. "I was trying to surprise my son," she said after a moment. "We haven't spoken it's been years. I thought if I just showed up, maybe—" She laughed, bitter and sad. "Stupid. I don't even know if he still lives at the same address. Lila didn't say anything. She'd learned a long time ago that people didn't always need advice. Sometimes they just needed someone to sit there and not fill the silence with useless reassurance. The woman drank more tea, picked up the spoon, managed a few bites of soup. "What's your son's name?" Lila asked eventually. "Noah." The woman's expression softened. "Noah Calloway." Lila's stomach dropped. She kept her face neutral, but inside, every alarm she'd spent the last 3 years ignoring started screaming at once. Noah Calloway. Everyone in Burlington knew that name. Half the country knew it. Tech billionaire, single dad, the guy whose company had gone from a garage startup to a Fortune 500 in less than a decade. She'd seen him on magazine covers in the grocery store, read headlines about his latest acquisition or product launch, or whatever the hell else billionaires did when they weren't counting money. And apparently, his mother was sitting in her diner, half frozen and crying into cheap tea. "Do you have a phone?" Lila asked carefully. "We can call him." The woman, Margaret, she'd said her name was Margaret, shook her head. "I lost it somewhere. Between the taxi and... I don't even know. Everything happened so fast." "Okay," Lila stood up. "I'll find his number. Give me a minute." She went back behind the counter and pulled out her phone, fingers moving fast. Noah Calloway's office number wasn't hard to find. There were 3 different business listings, plus a corporate directory. She tried the main line first. Voicemail. Of course. She tried the second number, then the third. Same result. Lila bit her lip, staring at the screen. There was one more option, and she hated it. But sitting here waiting for morning while Margaret Calloway's body temperature dropped wasn't exactly a plan. She called 911. The dispatcher sounded exhausted. "Ma'am, unless this is a life-threatening emergency, we're asking people to shelter in place. We have multiple accidents, downed power lines. I have an elderly woman who was caught in the storm. She's hypothermic and disoriented. I've got her warming up, but I don't have a way to contact her family." A pause. "Is she in immediate danger?" Lila glanced back at Margaret, who had both hands wrapped around the teacup now, her eyes closed. "Not immediate, but she needs to get somewhere safe. Keep her warm, keep her hydrated. We'll send someone when we can, but it might be a while." "Understood." Lila hung up and went back to the booth. "They're sending help, but the roads are bad. It might take some time." Margaret nodded. She looked more present now, less like she might slip away into nothing. "Thank you." "I'm sorry to be such trouble." "You're not trouble?" "I am." Margaret's smile was sad. "I'm always trouble. Ask my son." Lila sat down again, and for a while they didn't talk. The wind rattled the windows. The heater cycled on and off. Margaret finished her soup, then started on a second cup of tea. Color was coming back into her face slowly, and the shaking had mostly stopped. "Can I ask you something?" Margaret said eventually. "Sure." "Why were you here? This late, in this weather?" Lila looked at her hands. "Someone might have needed help." "You couldn't have known that." "No," Lila admitted, "but I couldn't know they wouldn't, either." Margaret studied her for a long moment, and Lila had the uncomfortable feeling she was being seen in a way she usually avoided. Most people looked at her and saw exactly what she wanted them to see. Quiet waitress, keeps to herself, nothing special. This woman was looking deeper. "You're running from something," Margaret said. Not a question. Lila's throat went tight. "Everyone's running from something." "True," Margaret's expression gentled. "But most people don't run this well." Before Lila could figure out how to answer that, headlights cut through the snow outside. Bright, sharp, moving fast despite the conditions. A car pulled up in front of the diner, sleek, black, expensive, and a man got out. Lila knew who he was before he reached the door. Noah Calloway looked exactly like his photos and nothing like them at the same time. Tall, dark hair dusted with snow, wearing a coat that probably cost more than Lila made in 6 months. But the photos didn't show the tension in his jaw, or the exhaustion carved into the lines around his eyes, or the way he moved like someone who'd forgotten how to stop working long enough to sleep. He shoved the door open and scanned the diner in one sharp sweep, his gaze locked on Margaret. "Mom." The word came out flat. Not angry, exactly, just empty. Margaret stood up, the blankets falling away. "Noah, I didn't mean, what the hell are you doing here? He crossed the space between them in 3 long strides. Do you have any idea what could have happened? You don't call, you don't text, you just disappear in the middle of a goddamn blizzard. I wanted to see you. That stopped him, just for a second. So you thought wandering around Burlington in a snowstorm was the way to do it? I thought, Margaret's voice wavered. I thought if I showed up, maybe you'd talk to me. Actually talk to me, not just send another check or another email saying you're too busy. Noah's jaw tightened. This isn't the time. It's never the time. They stared at each other, and the air between them was so thick with years of unsaid things that Lila felt like she was intruding just by breathing. She cleared her throat softly. She's okay. Cold, shaken up, but okay. I've been keeping her warm. Noah's attention snapped to her, and Lila felt the impact of it like a physical thing. His eyes were dark, sharp, assessing. She'd seen people look at her like that before, trying to figure out what she wanted, what her angle was. You called me, he said. I tried, got voicemail. I called 911, but they tracked my mother's phone, found it in a taxi halfway across town. He ran a hand through his hair, scattering snow. Driver said he dropped her off on Oak Street. She must have walked from there. That's almost 2 miles in this weather. Yeah. His expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Thank you for helping her. Lila shrugged. Anyone would have. No, Margaret said quietly. They wouldn't have. Noah looked at his mother, then back at Lila, and she could see him recalculating, trying to fit this situation into whatever framework he used to understand the world. I'm Noah Calloway. He didn't offer his hand. Maybe he figured she already knew who he was. Lila Hart. You work here? I do. He glanced around the diner, the worn booths, the flickering fluorescent lights, the faded posters advertising breakfast specials from 1987. Lila watched him take it all in, and she could practically hear his brain filing it away under not worth my time. I'll take her home, Noah said. Get her warmed up properly. The roads? I have a car that can handle it. Of course he did. Margaret touched his arm. Noah, please, can we just sit for a minute? She swayed just slightly, and Noah caught her elbow. Mom, I'm fine, just tired. She wasn't fine. Lila could see that, and so could Noah, however much he didn't want to. Margaret's color was better, but she still looked fragile, worn down in a way that had nothing to do with the cold. Sit, Lila said, both of you. I'll get more tea. Noah looked like he wanted to argue, but Margaret was already sinking back onto the booth seat, and he seemed to make some kind of internal calculation about what was worth fighting over. Fine, he said. 5 minutes. Lila went back to the kitchen and put the kettle on. Through the pass-through window, she could see them sitting across from each other, not talking, the silence between them heavy and complicated. Noah had his phone out, scrolling through something with the kind of focus that probably meant he was dealing with work stuff even now, even here. The lights flickered again. Lila held her breath, but they steadied. Outside, the wind had picked up even more, if that was possible. Snow was coming down so thick now she could barely see the street. She brought the tea back out, set a cup in front of each of them. Roads are getting worse, she said. Noah didn't look up from his phone. We'll be fine. I'm sure you will. I'm just saying, if you want to wait a bit. I appreciate the concern, but I know what I'm doing. He said it politely enough, but there was a wall behind the words. The kind of wall people built when they were used to making decisions and not having them questioned. Lila nodded and stepped back. Not her business, not her problem. Except Margaret was looking at her with an expression that said, please don't go, and Lila had never been good at walking away when people looked at her like that. She sat down at the counter instead, close enough to help if needed, far enough to give them space. The power died again. This time, it didn't come back. The sudden darkness was absolute. No streetlights, no neon signs from neighboring buildings, nothing, just black, and the sound of the wind trying to tear the roof off. Shit, Noah muttered. Lila was already moving, muscle memory guiding her to the drawer where they kept the emergency candles and the lighter that Marcus swore was older than the building. Her hands found them on the second try. She flicked the lighter, and warm flame pushed back the dark just enough to see. She lit 3 candles, spacing them out on the counter. The light was soft, flickering, turning the diner into something that felt smaller and stranger than it had 5 minutes ago. Does this happen a lot? Noah asked.
Often enough. Lila lit another candle. Usually it comes back within an hour or so. Usually. Yeah. Margaret wrapped her hands around her teacup again, even though it had to be getting cold by now. I remember when you were little, she said to Noah. You used to love power outages. You'd build forts out of blankets and hide inside with a flashlight. Noah's expression didn't change. That was a long time ago. You were so creative.
Always building things, taking them apart, figuring out how they worked. Mom, I'm just saying, I remember. Well, I don't. The words came out hard, final, and Margaret flinched like she'd been slapped. Lila looked away, focusing on the candles. Not her business. Definitely not her business. But the silence that followed was awful, thick with hurt and anger and all the things they clearly weren't saying to each other, and she found herself talking just to fill it. Power company says it might be out for a while, she said, checking her phone. Couple hours, maybe more. Substation got hit. Noah stood up. Then we should go now before it gets worse. Noah, I don't think, Margaret started. You need to be somewhere warm, somewhere safe. I am somewhere safe. In a diner with no power? With someone who helped me when I needed it. Margaret looked at Lila. I'd like to stay a little longer, if that's all right. Lila hesitated. Every instinct she had was screaming at her to stay out of this, to let Noah take his mother and go, to get back to being invisible. But Margaret's eyes were pleading, and Noah looked like he was about to snap from exhaustion and stress and whatever complicated history they had between them. You can stay as long as you need, Lila said quietly. Noah's jaw tightened. This is ridiculous. Then go. Margaret's voice was soft but steady. You don't have to stay. You never do. That landed like a punch. Lila could see it in the way Noah's shoulders went rigid, the way his hands curled into fists at his sides. That's not fair, he said. Isn't it? They stared at each other, and Lila had the sudden, uncomfortable certainty that she was watching something break that had been cracking for years. Noah sat back down. He didn't say anything, just sat there, staring at the candle flame, his expression unreadable. Outside, the storm kept howling. An hour passed, then another. The power didn't come back. Lila made more tea on the camping stove she kept in the back for emergencies. She brought out the last of the soup, some bread that was only half stale, cheese she'd bought for herself but figured she could spare. Margaret ate slowly, methodically, like she was forcing herself to keep going. Noah barely touched his food. They didn't talk much. When they did, it was surface-level stuff, the weather, the road conditions, whether the power company had given any updates. Nothing real. Lila cleaned things that didn't need cleaning, organized the sugar packets, counted the candles they had left, anything to give them the illusion of privacy while staying close enough to help if Margaret needed something. Around 2 in the morning, Noah's phone rang. He answered it immediately, stepping away from the table. Graham. Yeah. No, He paused, listening. That's not going to work. Push the meeting to Thursday. His voice was different when he talked business, sharper, more controlled, like he'd put on armor. I don't care what they want. Tell them Thursday or we walk. Another pause. Fine. Send me the numbers. I'll look at them in the morning. He hung up and stood there for a moment, staring at his phone screen. Everything okay? Margaret asked. Fine. You're lying. Noah turned to look at her, and some of the armor cracked. When am I not? It was supposed to be sarcastic, Lila thought, but it came out tired instead. Margaret's expression softened. Oh, sweetheart, don't. Noah held up a hand. Just don't. He walked over to the window and stood there looking out at the snow. From where Lila was sitting, she could see his reflection in the glass, tense, exhausted, holding himself together through sheer force of will. How's Emma? Margaret asked quietly. Noah's shoulders stiffened. She's fine. I'd love to see her. Yeah, well. Noah, she doesn't even know who you are, Mom. What am I supposed to say? Hey, sweetheart, this is your grandmother, the one who wasn't around for the first 4 years of your life. Margaret's face went pale. That's not fair. You keep saying that. Doesn't make it less true. Lila stood up, needing to do something, anything, to break the tension before it shattered into something worse. I'm going to check the back door, make sure the wind didn't damage anything. Nobody stopped her. She made her way through the dark kitchen, using her phone's flashlight to navigate around the prep stations and the industrial dishwasher. The back door was fine, locked tight, no damage she could see. She stood there for a minute anyway, just breathing. This was why she'd left New York. Why she'd driven until she couldn't drive anymore and ended up in Burlington waiting tables and keeping her head down. Because getting involved in other people's problems never ended well. Because caring about things, about people, only ever led to getting destroyed. She should kick them both out. Tell them to work through their family drama somewhere else. She didn't. When she came back to the dining room, Margaret had moved to sit beside Noah at the window. Neither of them was talking, but there was something different in the way they were sitting. Closer, maybe, or just less hostile. "Everything okay?" Lila asked. "Door's jammed," Noah said. "Snow's piled up against it. We're not getting out that way." Lila's stomach dropped. "What about the front?" "Check for yourself." She went to the front door and tried to push it open. It moved about 3 inches before hitting resistance, a wall of snow that had drifted against the building, packing in tight. "Shit." "Yeah," Noah came to stand beside her. "We're snowed in." Lila pulled out her phone and checked the weather update. It was worse than she'd thought. The storm had stalled over Burlington, dumping snow at a rate the city couldn't keep up with. Roads were completely impassable. The governor had declared a state of emergency. "How long?" Noah asked, reading over her shoulder. "They're saying the worst of it should pass by dawn, maybe 6, 7 hours." "Great." Margaret appeared behind them, blankets still wrapped around her shoulders. "I'm sorry. This is my fault." "Mom, it's a snowstorm. You didn't make it happen." "But if I hadn't, you'd probably be frozen to death somewhere, so maybe let's not play the what-if game." It wasn't kind, but it was honest, and Margaret seemed to take some comfort from that. They stood there for a moment, the three of them, staring at the wall of snow blocking their exit. "Well," Lila said eventually, "I've got blankets, coffee, enough food to get us through the night. Could be worse." Noah looked at her like she'd grown a second head. "Could be worse?" "Yeah, we could be stuck out there instead of in here." He opened his mouth, probably to argue, then seemed to think better of it. "I need to make some calls. Let people know where I am." He walked away, phone already in hand, and Margaret gave Lila a tired smile. "Thank you," she said, "for putting up with us." "You're not that bad." "We're terrible. We've been terrible to each other for years." Margaret's eyes were wet. "I don't know how to fix it." Lila didn't have an answer for that. She'd never been good at fixing things, especially not broken relationships. She was better at running from them. But Margaret was looking at her like she might have some kind of wisdom to offer, and Lila found herself saying, "Maybe you can't fix it all at once. Maybe you just start with being in the same room without it turning into a fight." Margaret laughed, soft and sad. That would be progress. The hours dragged on. Noah spent most of them on his phone, pacing back and forth in the narrow space between booths, his voice low as he handled whatever crisis his company was going through. Lila caught fragments. Something about a merger, a board meeting, numbers that weren't adding up. Margaret dozed in the booth, exhaustion finally catching up to her. Lila sat at the counter and tried not to think about how trapped she felt. Not by the snow, she'd been through worse storms, but by the situation. By the way Noah's presence filled the space even when he wasn't trying. By the uncomfortable recognition that she knew exactly what it felt like to build walls so high nobody could get in. To work yourself to death so you didn't have to think about all the things you'd lost. Around 4 a.m, Noah finally put his phone down. He came to sit at the counter, a few stools away from Lila, and for a while neither of them said anything. "She's asleep," he said eventually, nodding toward Margaret. "Good. She needs it." "Yeah." He rubbed his eyes. "I should have gotten her out of here earlier." "Roads were already bad. You would have gotten stuck anyway." "Maybe." Lila poured him coffee from the pot she'd brewed on the camping stove. It was terrible coffee, bitter and weak and nothing like whatever expensive stuff he probably drank, but he took it anyway. "Thank you," he said, "for tonight, for helping her." "I told you anyone would have—" "No." He cut her off, firm but not unkind. "They wouldn't have. I've seen how people treat strangers who need help. Most of them walk past. You didn't. Lila didn't know what to say to that, so she focused on her own coffee, which tasted like burnt dirt. Can I ask you something? Noah said. Sure. Why stay? When you saw how bad it was getting, why not just close up and go home? It was the same question Margaret had asked, and Lila still didn't have a good answer. Someone might have needed help, she said finally. That's not a reason. That's a rationalization. Maybe. She looked at him. Why does it matter? I'm trying to figure you out. Good luck with that. He almost smiled. Almost. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone simpler. Lila's hackles went up. Because I'm a waitress? Because you act like you want to disappear. He said it matter-of-factly, like he was commenting on the weather. But people who want to disappear don't usually stay open during blizzards to help strangers. She should have been angry, should have told him to mind his own business. Instead, she found herself saying, maybe I'm better at helping strangers than helping myself. Noah studied her, and Lila had the uncomfortable feeling he was seeing past all the careful layers she'd built up, straight down to the parts she'd spent years hiding. That's a lonely way to live, he said quietly. Says the guy who works through snowstorms. Touché. They sat there in the candlelight, drinking bad coffee, and something shifted in the air between them. Not trust, exactly, but maybe the beginning of recognition. The door rattled. They both turned, and Lila's stomach went cold when she saw a figure outside, trying to force the door open against the snow. Noah was on his feet immediately, moving toward the door. Wait, Lila started, but he was already there, using his shoulder to force it open enough for whoever was outside to squeeze through. A man stumbled in, snow covering him head to toe, breathing hard. Jesus Christ, he gasped. I thought I was going to die out there. He shook snow off his coat, and when he looked up, Lila's entire world stopped. Graham Pierce. He hadn't changed much in 3 years. Same sharp features, same expensive haircut, same smile that didn't reach his eyes. He saw Noah first. Thank God. Your assistant said you were somewhere in this area, but I didn't think... Then his gaze slid past Noah and landed on Lila. The smile disappeared. You, he said. It wasn't a greeting, it was an accusation. Noah looked between them, frowning. You two know each other? Lila couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Every carefully constructed wall she'd built around her new life was crumbling, and all she could do was stand there and watch it happen. Graham's expression had gone cold, calculating. We used to work together, didn't we, Lila? The way he said her name made her skin crawl. That was a long time ago, she managed. Not that long. He turned to Noah. Did she tell you she used to work in finance before she... He paused, like he was savoring the moment, before she had her little breakdown. Graham! Noah's voice had gone flat. Dangerous, but Graham wasn't done. It's fine. I'm sure she's doing great here. Very humble. His smile was razor sharp. Tell me, Lila, do you still think you're the smartest person in the room, or did you finally figure out that some battles aren't worth fighting? Lila's hands were shaking. She shoved them into her pockets so he wouldn't see. Get out, she said. Excuse me? You heard me. Get out. Graham laughed. In this weather? Don't be ridiculous. I don't care if there's a hurricane outside. I want you gone. Noah stepped between them. Someone want to tell me what the hell is going on? Nothing, Graham said smoothly. Just ancient history. Right, Lila? Margaret had woken up and was watching from the booth, her expression confused and worried. Lila looked at Noah, at the question in his eyes, at the way he was already trying to piece together what he didn't know. She could lie. Tell him it was nothing, that Graham was exaggerating, that whatever they'd had in the past was over and irrelevant. But Graham was here, in her space, in the one place she'd felt safe for 3 years, and suddenly she was so tired of running. We worked together, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. At Pearson Henley Financial. I was an analyst. Graham was senior partner. Until she tried to destroy the company, Graham added. Until I found out you were committing fraud. The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Noah went very still. What? It's not... Graham started, but Lila cut him off. Your firm was manipulating data on the Clearwater acquisition, hiding losses, inflating projections, lying to the SEC. I found the evidence, I reported it, and Graham made sure I'd never work in finance again.
She's delusional, Graham said flatly. This is exactly what she did last time. Made wild accusations, refused to listen to reason. I had proof. You had paranoia and a persecution complex. Lila's throat was tight, her heart hammering, but she forced herself to keep going. You destroyed my career. You made sure every firm in New York knew I was unstable. You took everything from me. I didn't take anything you didn't give away yourself. Graham's smile was ice. You could have kept your mouth shut, could have been successful. Instead, you chose to be righteous. And you chose to be a criminal. Enough! Noah's voice cracked like a whip. He was looking at Graham now, and there was something in his expression that Lila couldn't quite read. Is any of this true? Of course not. I'm not asking what she is. I'm asking if the Clearwater deal was dirty. Graham's jaw tightened. The Clearwater deal was fully vetted by our legal team. That's not what I asked. Noah, you can't possibly believe. Answer the question, Graham. The silence stretched out, heavy and suffocating. There were some irregularities, Graham said finally, but they were handled internally. No laws were broken. You're lying, Lila said, and you're bitter. Graham turned to Noah. She tried this 3 years ago, caused a whole mess, made accusations she couldn't prove, and when the investigation cleared us, she couldn't accept it. Had a complete meltdown. HR had to escort her out of the building. Because you paid off the investigators, Lila shot back. Because you buried the evidence and made me look crazy. Or maybe you were wrong. Did you ever consider that? Noah held up a hand. Both of you, stop. He looked at Lila. You said you had proof. Do you still have it? Lila hesitated. If she said yes, Graham would know she'd kept copies. Would know she'd been sitting on evidence all this time. Evidence that could destroy him. If she said no, Noah would assume she was making it up. Would dismiss her as just another bitter ex-employee with an axe to grind. I have it, she said quietly. Graham's face went blank. You're bluffing. Am I? If you had evidence, you would have used it by now. Maybe I was waiting for the right moment. Noah was staring at her like he'd never seen her before. Where is it? Safe. That's not an answer. It's the only one I'm giving you. The lights came back on. The sudden brightness was shocking after hours of candlelight. The heater kicked in with a mechanical wheeze. Somewhere in the kitchen, the refrigerator started humming. Nobody moved. Lila could feel the weight of their stares, Noah calculating, Graham furious, Margaret confused and worried. I need to see it, Noah said finally. No. Lila crossed her arms. I don't know you. I don't trust you. And I'm sure as hell not handing over the only leverage I have to protect myself. Leverage? Graham's laugh was ugly. Is that what this is about? You think you can blackmail? I think I can make sure you don't destroy anyone else the way you destroyed me. This is insane, Graham turned to Noah. You see what I mean? She's completely… Shut up. Noah didn't raise his voice, but the command in it was absolute. He looked at Lila. I need to think. And I need to make some calls. Noah, Graham started. I said shut up. Noah walked away, phone already in hand, and Lila was left standing there with Graham staring at her like he wanted to watch her burn. You just made a very big mistake, Graham said softly. Wouldn't be the first time. I could destroy you all over again. You know that, right? You already did. There's not much left to destroy. His smile was cold. You'd be surprised. Margaret cleared her throat. I don't know what's happening here, but I think everyone needs to calm down. This doesn't concern you, Graham said without looking at her. Actually, Lila said, it might. Noah came back before she could explain. His expression was unreadable. The Clearwater deal, he said to Graham. Who handled the final numbers? Our team. Why? Because one of the companies involved in that acquisition just got flagged in my current merger talks. Graham's face went pale. That's impossible, is it? Noah's eyes were hard. Because according to my CFO, there are discrepancies in their financial history that match exactly what Lila just described.
The air in the diner had gone toxic. "Noah, listen to me," Graham started. "No, you listen." Noah's voice was quiet, controlled, and absolutely lethal. "If you lied to me about this, if you brought dirty money anywhere near my company, I will personally make sure you never work again. Understood?" Graham's jaw worked. "You're going to believe her? Some waitress you just met?" "I'm going to believe the evidence, which you're going to help me find." "I don't. You have two choices. Help me figure out if this deal is compromised, or get out and pray I don't find anything on my own." They stared at each other, and Lila could see Graham calculating his odds, weighing his options. "Fine," he said finally, "but we do this my way. We do this the right way." Graham's smile was all teeth. "Of course." He looked at Lila one more time, and the hatred in his eyes was so pure it made her step back. Then he turned and walked out into the snow. The door slammed shut behind him. Margaret let out a breath she'd been holding. "What just happened?" "I think," Lila said slowly, "I just started a war I have no idea how to finish." Noah was still staring at the door, his expression unreadable. Then he turned to Lila. "We need to talk," he said. "Yeah, we do." Outside, the storm was starting to break. The first light of dawn was turning the sky gray, and Lila realized that everything had just changed in ways she couldn't begin to predict. The snow had stopped by the time the sun came up, but the silence it left behind felt worse than the storm. Lila stood at the window, watching the first light turn everything outside into blinding white. The streets were buried under 3 feet of snow. Cars looked like strange frozen sculptures. Nothing was moving. Behind her, Noah was on his phone again, his voice clipped and professional as he talked to someone about quarterly projections and due diligence. Margaret had fallen back asleep in the booth, her breathing slow and steady. Lila wanted to be anywhere but here. "I need those files by noon," Noah said into the phone. "I don't care if you have to dig them out of archives. Find them." He paused, listening. "Then find someone who can access them. This isn't optional." He hung up and turned to Lila. "We should talk." "You said that already. And you've been avoiding it for the last hour." She had been. Moving around the diner, cleaning things that were already clean, making coffee nobody was drinking, anything to avoid the conversation she knew was coming. "Your mother needs rest," Lila said. "Maybe we should—" "My mother is fine. You, on the other hand, just accused my business partner of fraud." "I didn't accuse him. I stated a fact." Noah's jaw tightened. "You understand what you're asking me to believe? Graham and I have worked together for 6 years. He's been on my board since the company went public. If he's dirty, if he brought compromised deals into my portfolio, your entire merger could be built on cooked books." "Exactly." Noah ran a hand through his hair. "So you can see why I need more than your word on this." Lila turned back to the window. "I can't give you the evidence. Not yet." "Why not?" "Because the last time I trusted someone with it, they buried it and made me look insane." "I'm not Graham." "No, you're the guy who's been in business with him for 6 years. She looked at him. "Why would I think you're any different?" The question hung between them, sharp and uncomfortable. Noah was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, less controlled, more raw. "Because I have a 4-year-old daughter who's going to inherit this company someday, and I'll be damned if I leave her something built on lies." Lila studied his face. He meant it, she could tell. But meaning it and following through were two very different things. "What happened with Graham?" Noah asked. "The real story, not the version he gave me." Lila sank onto one of the counter stools. She was exhausted, physically, emotionally, in every way that mattered, and suddenly she was so tired of carrying this alone. "I was 27, she said, fresh out of grad school working as a junior analyst at Pearson Henley. I was good at my job, really good. Good enough that they put me on the Clearwater acquisition 6 months in." "That's fast?" "Yeah, I thought it meant something." She laughed, bitter. "I thought it meant they saw my potential." "What did it mean?" "It meant they needed someone smart enough to spot problems, but inexperienced enough to ignore them." Lila traced a pattern on the counter with her finger. The numbers didn't add up. Revenue projections were too consistent, expenses too clean. When you work with real companies, there's always variation, always noise. This was too perfect. Noah leaned against the counter across from her. What did you find? Clearwater Technologies had been hiding losses for 2 years, cooking their books, inflating their value to attract acquisition interest. And Graham knew. He had to have known. His team handled the due diligence. Maybe they missed it. Nobody misses patterns that obvious, not unless they're trying to.
So what did you do? Lila met his eyes. I went to Graham first, privately, showed him what I'd found, asked if there was something I was missing. He told me I was being paranoid, said the numbers had been vetted by 3 different auditors. But you didn't believe him. I couldn't. The evidence was too clear. She took a breath. So I went to the SEC. Noah's expression shifted. You filed a complaint? Anonymous complaint.
Included copies of everything I'd found, the real financials, the doctored reports, the emails showing Graham's team had access to all of it. What happened? Nothing. For 3 months, nothing. Then one day I got called into HR. They said there had been concerns about my performance, said I'd been making errors, missing deadlines, showing signs of instability. But you hadn't been. No. But suddenly my performance reviews from the previous 6 months told a different story. Suddenly there were emails I'd never written, reports with my name on them, full of mistakes I'd never made. Noah's face had gone hard. They fabricated evidence. Graham fabricated evidence, with help from people high enough up the chain that nobody questioned it. Lila's hands were shaking again. By the time the SEC investigation closed, insufficient evidence, case dismissed, I'd already been fired, and Graham made sure everyone knew why. The breakdown story. Yeah, unstable analyst makes wild accusations, gets proven wrong, has a mental health crisis. Very neat, very believable. Except it wasn't true. Doesn't matter. Once that story's out there, it's what people believe. I couldn't get another job in finance, couldn't even get interviews. Every firm I applied to had already heard about the crazy woman who'd tried to take down Pearson Henley. Noah was quiet, processing. So you left New York. I drove until I ran out of money, ended up here, found a job where nobody cared about my work history, as long as I could carry plates and smile at customers. She looked around the diner. Not exactly what I planned for my life, but it's honest work. Nobody tries to make me complicit in fraud. You kept copies of the evidence. It wasn't a question, but Lila answered anyway. I'm paranoid, not stupid. Where is it? Safe. Lila, I'm not telling you. Not yet. Noah's jaw tightened, but he didn't push. If Graham finds out you still have it, he already knows. You saw his face. Then you're not safe. I haven't been safe for 3 years. This doesn't change anything. It changes everything. Noah pulled out his phone. I'm calling my head of security. Getting someone over here. No. This isn't negotiable. Yes, it is. Lila stood up. I didn't ask for your help. I didn't ask to be dragged back into this. Your business partner walked into my diner and now suddenly I'm your problem? That's not how this works. You made it my problem when you told me about the fraud. I only told you because he was standing right there. I was trying to... She stopped, took a breath. Look, I appreciate the concern, but I've been handling Graham Pierce for 3 years. I can handle him for a few more days. Days? Until the road's clear, until he's gone. Then we can all go back to pretending this never happened. Noah stared at her like she'd lost her mind. You think he's just going to walk away? After you threatened to expose him in front of witnesses? What's he going to do? He's already destroyed my career, already made sure I can't work in finance. There's nothing left to take. You're not that naive. He was right. She wasn't. But admitting how scared she actually was felt like giving Graham exactly what he wanted. Margaret stirred in the booth, blinking awake. What time is it? Just after 7, Noah said, his voice immediately gentling. How are you feeling? Better? Warmer? She sat up slowly, looking between them. You two are fighting. We're discussing, Noah said. You're fighting, I can tell. Margaret stood up, wrapping the blanket tighter around her shoulders. What about? Lila and Noah exchanged a look. It's complicated, Lila said. Everything with Noah is complicated. Margaret came over to the counter. But I'm guessing it has something to do with that man who showed up last night. The one who looked at you like you'd personally wronged him. Graham, Noah said. He seems unpleasant. That's one word for him. Lila poured Margaret fresh coffee. How much did you hear? Enough to know he hurt you, and enough to know my son is trying to figure out if he should believe you or his business partner. Noah's expression went carefully blank.
Mom, I'm not judging. I'm just observing. Margaret took the coffee and wrapped her hands around the cup. For what it's worth, I believe her. You don't even know what happened. I know what I saw. That man was cruel. And Lila, she looked at Lila with those sharp, seeing eyes. You're a lot of things, but you're not a liar. Lila's throat went tight.
You can't know that. Yes, I can. I've spent enough time around liars to recognize the real thing. Margaret's smile was sad. I married one, raised a son with one. I know what it looks like when someone's trying to hide the truth. That's not what you're doing. Then what am I doing? Protecting yourself, which is smart, given how badly you've been burned. Noah was watching them both, his expression unreadable. Before anyone could say anything else, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his face went hard. It's Graham, he said. Don't answer it, Lila said immediately. I have to. If I don't, he'll know I'm avoiding him. So what? So I need him to think everything's normal while I figure out what the hell is actually going on. Noah answered the call. Graham, yeah, I'm still here. Power's back, but the roads are a mess. He listened for a moment, his expression giving nothing away. No, I haven't had time to look at the files yet. I've been dealing with my mother. Another pause. That's not necessary. I can handle it from here. Lila watched him, trying to read between the lines of the conversation. I said no. Noah's voice had gone cold. I'll call you when I've reviewed everything. Until then, sit tight and don't do anything stupid. He hung up. What did he want? Margaret asked. To come back, said he wants to clear up any misunderstandings before I start making calls. Lila's stomach dropped. He's going to try to get ahead of this. Spin the story before you can verify anything. Yeah, that's what I figured. So what are you going to do? Noah looked at her, and for the first time since he'd walked into the diner, she saw past the armor to the person underneath. He was scared. Not of Graham exactly, but of what it would mean if everything Lila had said was true. I'm going to look at the Clearwater deal, he said. Every file, every email, every piece of documentation we have. And I'm going to compare it to whatever information you can give me.
I told you, shh. I'm not asking for the evidence, not yet. He held up a hand before she could argue. Just tell me what to look for. The patterns you saw, the discrepancies. Give me enough to know if you're right. Lila hesitated. It was a risk. If Noah was working with Graham, if this was all some elaborate setup, she'd be handing them exactly what they needed to bury the evidence for good. But if he was telling the truth, if he actually wanted to know what had happened, this might be her only chance to prove it. Okay, she said finally. But not here. Not while your mother is. I'm fine, Margaret said. And I'm not leaving. Whatever this is, I want to help. Mom, this is business. You don't need to. Noah Calloway, I have sat on the sidelines of your life for 4 years watching you work yourself to death. If you think I'm going to miss the chance to actually be useful, you're out of your mind. Noah looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Margaret's expression stopped him. Fine, he said, but if this gets dangerous, then I'll hide under a table like a sensible person. Margaret turned to Lila. What do you need? What Lila needed was to be anywhere but here, having this conversation, making these choices. But that ship had sailed the moment Graham Pierce walked through the door. Paper, she said, and a pen. Margaret found a notepad behind the counter, one of the old order pads they barely used anymore, and handed it to Lila along with a chewed-up ballpoint pen. Lila started writing. She wrote down the pattern she'd found 3 years ago. The way Clearwater's revenue had increased at exactly 3.2% every quarter for 2 years straight. The expenses that never varied by more than half a percentage point. The subsidiary transactions that appeared in one set of books, but not another. She wrote down names. The auditors Graham's team had used, the lawyers who'd signed off on the deal, the board members who'd approved the acquisition. She wrote down dates, email timestamps, file numbers. When she was done, she had 3 pages of notes that would mean nothing to most people, but everything to someone who knew how to read financial documents.
She handed the notepad to Noah. He read through it slowly, his expression growing darker with each line. "This is detailed," he said. "I have a good memory." "This is more than memory. This is—" He stopped, looking at her. "You've been carrying this around in your head for 3 years?" "I didn't have much choice." Noah set the notepad down and pulled out his laptop. "Give me an hour, maybe 2. I need to access our archives and cross-reference this against what we have on file. And if it matches, then we have a problem." He moved to one of the booths and opened his laptop, already absorbed in whatever he was seeing on the screen. Margaret came to stand beside Lila. "He believes you," she said quietly. "He's checking. That's not the same thing." "For Noah, it is. If he thought you were lying, he wouldn't waste his time." Lila wanted to believe that, but she'd learned the hard way that belief and action were 2 very different things. She went back to cleaning, wiping down tables, restocking napkins, anything to keep her hands busy while her mind raced through every possible outcome of what was happening. Outside, she could see people starting to emerge. Neighbors with shovels, trying to dig out their cars, a plow making its slow way down the street, pushing snow into enormous banks on either side. The world was waking up, getting back to normal. Inside the diner, everything was falling apart. An hour passed, then another. Noah didn't look up from his laptop. His expression had gone from focused to grim to something Lila couldn't quite identify. Every so often, he'd make a note on a legal pad he'd pulled from his bag, or pull up a new file, or mutter something under his breath that sounded like cursing. Margaret dozed again. Lila made more coffee and tried not to think about what would happen if Noah found something, or worse, if he didn't. Finally, Noah closed his laptop. The sound made Lila jump. "Well?" she said. Noah looked at her, and the expression on his face made her stomach drop. "You were right," he said. The word should have felt like vindication, like 3 years of shame and anger and loss finally being acknowledged. Instead, they just felt heavy. "How bad is it?" Lila asked. "Bad." Noah rubbed his eyes. "The patterns you described, they're all there. Clearwater's financials are too clean, too consistent. And when I cross-referenced them against the companies in my current merger, I found 3 subsidiaries with the same auditing firm Graham used. The same one that missed all the red flags? The same one that was paid $100,000 in consulting fees the month before the deal closed." Lila's hands curled into fists. "He bribed them." "Looks like it. And if he did it once, he's done it before. He'll do it again." She took a breath. "What are you going to do?" Noah was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know." It was the most honest thing he'd said all morning. "Graham's been with me from the beginning," he said. "When I was building the company out of my apartment, trying to convince investors that my platform wasn't just another tech bubble, he was the one who believed in it, who brought in the money, the connections, everything we needed to scale. That doesn't mean he's not dirty. No, but it means—" Noah stopped, started again. "If I go after him, if I blow this up publicly, it doesn't just destroy Graham, it destroys the company, everything I've built, everything my employees depend on. And if you don't, then I'm complicit. I know about the fraud, and I'm choosing to ignore it." Lila understood the position he was in. She'd been there herself 3 years ago, standing at the same crossroads. Report the truth and lose everything, or stay quiet and keep your career. She'd chosen the truth. It had cost her everything anyway. "There's no good answer," she said. "Whatever you choose, someone gets hurt." "Yeah." Noah looked at her. "How did you do it? How did you decide to report Graham when you knew what it would cost you?" Lila thought about it. "I didn't decide, really. I just couldn't live with myself if I didn't. The cost of staying quiet was higher than the cost of speaking up. Even though it destroyed your life? My life was already destroyed the moment I found that evidence. I just didn't know it yet." She leaned against the counter. "At least this way, I can look at myself in the mirror." Noah was quiet, absorbing that. Margaret stirred again. This time, when she sat up, she looked more alert, more present. "You found something?" she said to Noah. "Yeah." "And it's bad." "Yeah." Margaret stood up and came over to them. "Then you need to do something about it." "It's not that simple, Mom." "It never is. But you have a choice to make. and avoiding it won't make it go away.
I know that. Do you?
Margaret's voice was gentle but firm. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're trying to figure out how to protect everyone except yourself. That's my job. I have employees, investors, people who depend on... And what about Emma? What happens when she grows up and finds out her father knew about fraud and did nothing? That hit him like a physical blow. Lila could see it in the way his shoulders tensed, the way his jaw went tight. That's not fair, Noah said. Life isn't fair. You taught me that. Margaret's smile was sad. You shut me out of your life because I wasn't there when you needed me, because I chose my comfort over your well-being.
Are you really going to do the same thing to your daughter? This is different. Is it?
They stared at each other, and Lila felt like she was watching something fundamental shift between them. Noah's phone rang. He glanced at it, and his expression went dark.
Graham again?
Margaret asked. No, my CFO, he answered. David. Yeah, I saw them. What? He listened, his face growing paler. When? Another pause. No, don't do anything yet. I'm handling it. He hung up and looked at Lila. The merger just got accelerated, he said. Board wants to close by end of month. Lila's stomach dropped. That's less than 2 weeks. Yeah. If the deal goes through with compromised companies, then my entire portfolio becomes tainted. Every acquisition, every merger, every deal Graham had his hands in becomes suspect. Can you stop it? Not without proof that holds up in court. And even then, Noah shook his head. Graham has friends on the board, people who trust him more than they trust me. Then you need my evidence. Yes. The word hung between them, heavy with everything it meant. Lila had spent 3 years protecting those files, keeping them hidden, keeping them safe, because they were the only thing standing between her and complete destruction. If she handed them over and Noah couldn't protect them, if Graham found out where they were, she'd have nothing left. But if she didn't hand them over, Noah's company would be built on fraud. His daughter would inherit a legacy of lies. And Lila would have to live with knowing she could have stopped it. I need guarantees, she said. What kind of guarantees? Legal protection, immunity from any liability, and if this goes public, my name stays out of it. Noah nodded. I can do that. And I want it in writing, from your lawyers, not from you. Done. Anything else? Lila took a breath. If Graham comes after me, and he will, I need to know you'll protect me. You have my word. Your word isn't enough. I need resources, security, whatever it takes to make sure he can't destroy me again. Noah met her eyes. You'll have it. All of it. Lila wanted to believe him, but she'd trusted the wrong people before, and it had cost her everything. Margaret put a hand on her arm. He means it, she said softly. I know my son. When he makes a promise like that, he keeps it. You're his mother. You're supposed to say that. I'm his mother who hasn't seen him in 4 years. I don't say things I don't mean anymore. Margaret's grip tightened. Trust him, Lila. Or at least trust that he's as scared as you are. Lila looked at Noah, really looked at him, past the expensive suit and the controlled expression and the billionaire reputation. What she saw was someone standing at the same crossroads she'd stood at 3 years ago, trying to figure out how to do the right thing when every option led to destruction. Okay, she said. The evidence is in a safety deposit box. Bank of Vermont, downtown branch. Can you access it? Roads are still a mess. Probably not until tomorrow. Then we wait until tomorrow. Noah pulled out his phone. In the meantime, I'm calling my lawyers, getting the immunity agreement drafted. And I'm putting security on you, whether you like it or not. I don't like it. Noted. Doing it anyway. He walked away, already dialing, and Lila was left standing there with Margaret. You did the right thing, Margaret said. I hope so. You did. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you did. Lila looked at her. How do you know? You barely know me. I know what it looks like when someone's been beaten down and is still trying to stand up. I know what courage looks like. Margaret's eyes were wet. You saved my life last night. The least I can do is believe in you now. Lila's throat went tight. She wasn't used to people believing in her, wasn't used to people seeing past the waitress facade to the person underneath. Thank you, she said quietly. Don't thank me yet. This is going to get worse before it gets better.
I know. But you're not alone anymore. That has to count for something. It did. More than Lila wanted to admit.
Noah came back over, his expression tense. My lawyers are drawing up the papers. They'll have them ready by this afternoon. That fast? I pay them to be fast. He paused. I also called my head of security. He's sending someone to watch the diner. And he's putting a team on Graham, just in case. In case of what? In case he's stupid enough to try something before we can build our case. Lila's stomach twisted. You think he would? I think he's desperate. Desperate people do desperate things. As if on cue, the diner door opened. Graham Pierce walked in, snow still clinging to his coat, his expression cold and controlled. We need to talk, he said. Noah stepped between Graham and Lila immediately. Get out. This is a public diner. I have as much right to be here as you do. Not when you're threatening people. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm trying to have a conversation before this situation gets out of hand. It's already out of hand, Noah said. I've seen the files. I know what you did. Graham's expression didn't change. You saw some irregularities in old financial documents. That's not proof of anything. It's enough to start asking questions. Questions that will destroy your company. Is that really what you want? What I want is the truth. Graham's smile was razor sharp. The truth is that Lila Hart is a disgraced analyst with a history of mental instability. The truth is that she made these exact same accusations 3 years ago and couldn't prove them. The truth is that you're risking everything you've built on the word of a woman who can't hold down a real job. Lila felt the words hit like physical blows. Every insecurity, every moment of shame from the last 3 years came rushing back. But before she could respond, Margaret spoke up. That's enough. Graham looked at her like he'd just noticed she was there. Excuse me? I said that's enough. You've made your point. Now leave. I don't think you understand what's at stake here. I understand perfectly. You're trying to intimidate a woman who's already been through hell because she had the audacity to tell the truth about your crimes. Margaret's voice was steady, clear. And I'm telling you, it's not going to work. Graham's expression went cold. Who the hell are you? I'm Noah's mother, and I'm done watching people like you destroy people like her. Mom, Noah said quietly, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Margaret looked at Graham. Leave now, or I'll call the police and report you for harassment. You can't be serious. Try me. They stared at each other, and Lila could see Graham weighing his options. He could push this, could try to steamroll Margaret the way he'd steamrolled Lila 3 years ago. But there were witnesses now, and Noah was watching with an expression that promised consequences. Graham took a step back. This isn't over, he said to Noah. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Graham looked at Lila one more time. You should have stayed quiet. Probably, Lila said, but I never was good at doing what I should. He turned and walked out, and the silence he left behind was deafening. Lila's legs felt weak. She sank onto a stool before they could give out entirely. That was, she started, but couldn't finish. Terrifying, Margaret supplied, but necessary. Noah was already on his phone again. Yeah, he just left, heading east on Maple. Don't lose him. He hung up and looked at Lila. My security team is on him. He won't get close to you again. He doesn't need to get close. He's already done the damage. Not yet, he hasn't. Noah's voice was hard. But he will if we give him the chance, which is why we're not going to wait until tomorrow. What do you mean? I mean, we're going to that bank today, as soon as the roads are clear enough to drive. We're getting that evidence, and we're going to bury him before he can bury us. Lila wanted to argue, wanted to say it was too risky, too fast, that they needed more time to plan. But Graham's expression when he'd looked at her just now told her everything she needed to know about how much time they actually had. Okay, she said, let's do it. The roads opened around noon, but calling them open was generous. The plows had made a single pass down Main Street, carving out a narrow channel through snow that was still piled high enough to bury a compact car. Everything looked different in daylight, smaller, sharper, less forgiving. Noah's driver showed up in a black SUV that looked like it could drive through a war zone. Probably could, knowing Noah's resources. The man behind the wheel was built like a wall and didn't smile when Noah introduced him as Marcus. Not the same Marcus who cooked at the diner. This Marcus looked like he ate nails for breakfast. Roads are rough, Marcus said, but we can make it to the bank if we're careful. Then let's go. Noah turned to Margaret. You should stay here, where it's safe. Absolutely not. Mom, I didn't spend the night in a snowstorm just to sit in a diner while you go do something dangerous. Margaret pulled on her coat. Besides, you'll need a witness, someone who's not involved in the business side of things. She's right, Lila said, surprised to hear herself agreeing. If this goes sideways, you'll want someone who can verify what happened. Noah looked like he wanted to argue, but Margaret's expression left no room for discussion. He sighed. Fine, but you stay in the car. Both of you stay in the car while I go in with Lila. I'm not staying in the car, Lila said immediately. It's your safety deposit box. I can't access it without you. I meant your mother should stay in the car. I'm coming inside. That defeats the entire purpose of keeping you safe. I've been keeping myself safe for 3 years. I think I can manage a trip to the bank. They stared at each other, and Lila could see the calculation happening behind Noah's eyes. He was used to people doing what he told them, used to making decisions and having them followed. She wasn't one of his employees. Fine, he said finally. But Marcus comes in with us, and if anything feels wrong, we leave. No arguments. Agreed. The drive took 20 minutes that felt like an hour. The SUV handled the snow better than Lila expected, but every time they passed an abandoned car or a downed power line, her stomach tightened. The whole city looked like it had been beaten down and was still trying to figure out how to stand back up. Margaret sat in the back seat next to Lila, her hand resting lightly on Lila's arm. She hadn't said much since they left the diner, but her presence was steadying in a way Lila hadn't expected. You okay? Margaret asked quietly. No. Good. You shouldn't be. Lila looked at her. That's supposed to make me feel better? It's supposed to make you feel honest. Margaret's smile was sad. Pretending you're fine when you're terrified doesn't help anyone. It helps me not fall apart. Does it? Or does it just delay the falling apart until you're alone? The question hit harder than Lila wanted to admit. She'd spent 3 years holding herself together in public and breaking down in private. 3 years of smiling at customers and crying in her apartment. 3 years of pretending the weight of what Graham had done to her didn't matter. It mattered. It had always mattered. I'm scared, Lila said, the words coming out before she could stop them. I'm scared Graham's going to win again, that even with the evidence, even with Noah's help, it won't be enough. It might not be, Margaret said, but you're not doing this alone anymore. That has to count for something. Before Lila could answer, Marcus pulled up in front of the Bank of Vermont. The building was old, solid stone that had probably been standing since before Lila was born. A few people were already out front, shoveling the steps, trying to make the entrance accessible. Noah turned in his seat to look at Lila. You ready? No, but I'm doing it anyway. That's the spirit. They got out of the SUV, Marcus leading the way. The cold hit Lila like a slap, sharper than yesterday, meaner. Her breath came out in clouds that disappeared almost immediately. Inside, the bank was warm and smelled like old paper and floor polish. There were only a few customers, all of them looking tired and wind-beaten. The teller at the front desk looked up when they walked in, her professional smile freezing when she saw Noah. Mr. Calloway, this is unexpected. Word traveled fast in Burlington. Of course, the bank employees knew who Noah was. I'm here with Ms. Hart, Noah said. She needs to access her safety deposit box. The teller's gaze shifted to Lila, and there was a flicker of recognition there that made Lila's stomach drop. Did she know? Had Graham already been here, already started laying groundwork? Of course, I'll need to see ID and your key. Lila pulled out her wallet with hands that shook slightly. The key was there, tucked into a pocket she never touched, wrapped in a piece of paper that had her box number written on it in her own handwriting from 3 years ago. The teller checked her ID, checked the key, then led them down a hallway to a heavy vault door. Marcus stayed close, his eyes scanning everything like he expected trouble to jump out from behind the potted plants. Inside the vault, the air was cooler, staler. Rows of metal boxes lined the walls, each one holding someone's secrets. The teller found Lila's box, number 347, and used both keys to unlock it. I'll give you some privacy, she said, and left. Lila pulled the box out with both hands. It was heavier than she remembered. You want us to step out? Noah asked quietly. No, you're going to see what's in here anyway. She set the box on the small table in the center of the room and opened it. Inside were 2 flash drives, a stack of papers in a sealed envelope, and a leather journal she'd used to document everything as it happened. Insurance, she'd told herself at the time. Protection against her own memory failing, against Graham's version of events becoming the only version that existed. Noah picked up one of the flash drives. What's on these? Emails, financial documents, the original Clearwater reports before Graham's team doctored them, phone records showing calls between Graham and the Clearwater CEO in the weeks before the acquisition. Lila's voice was steady, clinical, easier to talk about it like evidence instead of the thing that had destroyed her life. Everything I found. And the journal? Timeline, notes from meetings, conversations I overheard, things I couldn't prove with documents but knew were important. Noah opened the envelope carefully. Inside were printed emails, spreadsheets with highlighted sections, notes in Lila's handwriting pointing out the discrepancies. It was meticulous, obsessive even. It was 3 years of her life condensed into one safety deposit box. This is... Noah stopped, started again. This is enough to bury him. I know. Why didn't you use it before? Why hide it away instead of going to the authorities? Lila laughed, bitter and sharp. I tried that, remember? The SEC investigation got buried. Graham made sure of it. What was I supposed to do? Take it to the press? Get myself sued for defamation? End up even more destroyed than I already was? You could have... What? Found a lawyer who'd take on a case against one of the biggest financial firms in New York? With what money? She shook her head. I kept it because it was the only thing I had. The only proof that I wasn't crazy, that I hadn't imagined everything. But using it? That would have required resources I didn't have and faith in a system that had already failed me. Noah was quiet, staring at the documents in his hands. Marcus stood by the door, giving them space but staying alert. I'm sorry, Noah said finally. For what? For not believing you sooner. For making you explain yourself like you're the one who did something wrong. Lila's throat went tight. You didn't know me. You had no reason to believe me over Graham. I should have trusted my instincts. The moment I saw these numbers, I knew something was off. I just didn't want to see it. Nobody wants to see it. That's how people like Graham get away with it. Noah started photographing the documents with his phone, his movements quick and efficient. I'm sending these to my legal team. They'll need to verify everything, build a case that'll hold up. How long will that take? A few days? Maybe a week? Depends on how deep this goes. Lila picked up the journal, flipping through pages of her own handwriting. She'd almost forgotten how detailed she'd been. Dates, times, exact quotes when she could remember them. It read less like notes and more like a testimony. Graham's going to fight this, she said. He's not going to just roll over and confess. I know. He'll come after me. After you. He'll try to discredit the evidence, claim it's fabricated or taken out of context. Let him try. Noah's voice was hard. I've got the best lawyers in the country, and now I've got proof. A sound from the hallway made them all freeze. Footsteps getting closer. Marcus moved immediately, positioning himself between the door and Lila. His hand went to his waist, where Lila realized he was probably carrying a gun. The door opened. It was just the teller, looking apologetic. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a gentleman here asking for Ms. Hart. He says it's urgent. Lila's blood went cold. What's his name? He didn't give one, but he said you'd know who he was. Graham. It had to be. Noah's jaw tightened. Tell him she's not available. I did. He said he'd wait. Then call security and have him removed. The teller hesitated. He's very insistent, and he mentioned he's a business associate of yours, Mr. Calloway. Noah and Lila exchanged a look. He followed us, Lila said, or he had someone watching the diner. Noah pulled out his phone. I'm calling my security team. They should have been tracking him. He stepped into the hallway, his voice low and angry as he spoke to whoever answered. Marcus stayed with Lila, his expression giving nothing away. This is bad, isn't it? Lila said. Could be worse. At least we're in a public place. That didn't stop him last time. Marcus looked at her. Last time you were alone. You're not alone now. It should have been reassuring. It wasn't. Lila had learned the hard way that being in a public place with witnesses didn't mean you were safe. It just meant the violence was more subtle. Noah came back, his expression grim. He gave my team the slip about 20 minutes ago. They lost him near the downtown area. So he knew we were coming here. Looks like it. Lila's hands curled into fists. He's not going to let us leave with this evidence. He doesn't have a choice. This is a bank. There are cameras, security, witnesses. He can do whatever he wants. He's done it before. The certainty in her voice seemed to shake Noah. He looked at the documents spread across the table, then back at Lila. We need to move, he said. Now, before he figures out a way to get in here. They gathered everything quickly. Flash drives in Noah's pocket, documents back in the envelope, journal in Lila's bag. Marcus checked the hallway before letting them out. The walk back through the bank felt like walking through a minefield. Every person they passed could be working for Graham. Every sound could be the prelude to something worse. When they reached the main lobby, Lila saw him. Graham stood by the front entrance, blocking their exit. He wasn't alone. Two men flanked him, both in suits, both with the kind of build that said they weren't there to have a conversation. Noah, Graham said, his voice carrying across the lobby. We need to talk. Not now. Yes, now. Graham took a step forward, and his companions moved with him. Before you do something you'll regret. People were starting to stare. A security guard near the door was watching them, his hand moving toward his radio. Noah's voice dropped to something cold and dangerous. Get out of my way. I'm trying to protect you, both of you. Graham's gaze shifted to Lila. Whatever she's told you, whatever she's shown you, it's not what you think. I've seen the evidence, Graham. The real evidence. Not the sanitized version you fed to the SEC. Then you've seen documents taken out of context by someone with an agenda. The only person with an agenda here is you. Graham's expression hardened. You're making a mistake. If you go public with this, if you let her destroy what we've built together, you'll lose everything. Better than building something on fraud. There was no fraud. There were judgment calls, strategic decisions that in hindsight, there were crimes, Noah cut him off, and you knew about them. You facilitated them. You profited from them. The lobby had gone quiet. Everyone was watching now, this confrontation between two men who clearly had history, clearly had power. Graham glanced around, seeming to realize how exposed he was. His voice lowered. Let me explain. Somewhere private. Just you and me. So you can spin another lie? No thanks. Noah, please, for everything we've been through together. Everything we've been through is exactly why I can't trust you. Noah started to move toward the door, Marcus and Lila following close behind. Graham stepped into their path. Move, Noah said. Not until you listen. I said move. The two men with Graham moved forward, and suddenly Marcus was there, putting himself between them and Noah. The security guard was speaking into his radio now, calling for backup. This was going to get ugly. Then Margaret's voice cut through the tension. Enough! Everyone turned. Margaret had gotten out of the SUV and was standing in the doorway, snow still clinging to her coat, her expression fierce. This is a bank, not a boxing ring. Whatever you need to settle, you settle it somewhere else. Graham looked at her like she was an insect. This doesn't concern you. It concerns my son, which makes it my business. She walked forward until she was standing next to Noah. You've already lost, Mr. Pierce. You just haven't accepted it yet. I haven't lost anything. You've lost Noah's trust, you've lost your credibility, and if you don't walk away right now, you're going to lose a lot more than that. Graham's jaw clenched. He looked at Noah, at Lila, at the security guard who was now joined by two more guards. This isn't over, he said. Yeah, Noah said. It is. Graham turned and walked out, his companions following. Through the glass doors, Lila could see him getting into a car. Expensive, black, probably rented. The lobby slowly returned to normal. People went back to their transactions, their conversations. The security guards dispersed. Lila's legs felt weak. We need to go, Noah said quietly, before he decides to come back with reinforcements. They made it to the SUV without incident. Marcus drove, his eyes constantly checking the mirrors, watching for anyone following them. Margaret sat in the back with Lila again, her hand finding Lila's and squeezing. "You were brave," Margaret said. "I was terrified." Bravery isn't not being scared. It's being scared and doing it anyway. Lila wanted to believe that, but right now all she felt was the weight of what she'd just set in motion. Graham knew she had the evidence, knew Noah had seen it. Whatever happened next was going to be worse than anything that had come before. "Where are we going?" she asked. "My office," Noah said. "I need to get this to my legal team immediately, and I need to make some calls." "What kind of calls?" "The kind that start dismantling everything Graham's touched in my company." The weight in his voice told Lila exactly how much that was going to cost him. Not just money, relationships, trust, everything he'd built with Graham over the last 6 years. "I'm sorry," she said. Noah glanced back at her. "For what?" "For dragging you into this." "You didn't drag me anywhere. Graham did this. You just had the guts to tell the truth about it." They drove through the city in silence, past buildings Lila recognized and streets she'd walked 1,000 times. Everything looked the same and completely different at the same time. Noah's office was in one of the newer buildings downtown, all glass and steel, the kind of place that screamed money and success. The parking garage was mostly empty, but Marcus still did a full sweep before letting them out of the SUV. The elevator ride to the top floor felt endless. Lila watched the numbers climb, each one making her stomach tighter. When the doors opened, they walked into an office that was nothing like Lila expected. She'd imagined something cold, impersonal, all chrome and leather. Instead, it was warm, wood floors, comfortable furniture, windows that looked out over the entire city. Photos on the desk showed a little girl with dark hair and Noah's eyes. Emma, his daughter. "Sit," Noah said, gesturing to the couch. "I need to make some calls. This is going to take a while." He disappeared into an adjoining conference room and Lila could hear his voice through the door, sharp, controlled, absolutely certain. Margaret settled on the couch next to Lila. "He's good at this part, the business part. It's everything else he struggles with." "What do you mean?" "Being human, letting people in, trusting that the world won't fall apart if he stops controlling every variable." Margaret's smile was sad. "He got that from his father, the need to be in charge of everything." "You said you were married to a liar." "I was, for 20 years. He was good at it too. So good that I didn't realize how many lies he'd told until he was gone and I was left sorting through the wreckage." Margaret looked out the window. "That's why I left. Why I stayed away from Noah. I couldn't face what I'd enabled, what I'd chosen not to see." "That's not the same as lying, isn't it? Choosing to ignore the truth because it's easier than dealing with it?" Margaret shook her head. "I was a coward. And by the time I realized it, Noah had built walls so high I couldn't climb them. He let you in last night. He let you in. I just happened to be there." Lila didn't know what to say to that. The idea that she had somehow been the catalyst for Noah and Margaret's reconciliation felt too big, too important. An hour passed. Then another. Noah stayed in the conference room, his voice rising and falling as he made call after call. At one point, Lila heard him swear, loud enough that it carried through the door. Margaret went to check on him. When she came back, her expression was troubled. "What's wrong?" Lila asked. "Graham's already making moves. He's calling board members, spinning the story, trying to paint Noah as paranoid and you as a disgruntled former employee out for revenge." Lila's stomach dropped. "Is it working?" "Some of them are listening. Some of them have worked with Graham for years and don't want to believe he's dirty." "So we're already losing. We're already fighting. That's not the same thing." Noah emerged from the conference room looking exhausted. He'd loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, and there were shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there this morning. "My lawyers are reviewing everything," he said. "They'll have a preliminary report by tomorrow morning." "And Graham?" "Graham's doing exactly what we expected, spreading his version of events, trying to get ahead of the truth." Noah sank into a chair. "But he made a mistake." "What mistake?" "He got sloppy. In his rush to discredit you, he sent an email to the board that contradicts something he said 3 years ago. My legal team caught it." Lila's heart started beating faster.
What did he say?
3 years ago, when the SEC was investigating, Graham claimed he had no direct knowledge of the Clearwater deal, said his team handled it, and he only saw the final reports. And in the email he sent today, he talked about personally vetting the Clearwater acquisition, about making judgment calls based on information available at the time. Noah's smile was grim. He just admitted he lied to federal investigators. The implications hit Lila all at once. That's perjury. That's a felony. Margaret had gone pale. What does this mean? It means we have him, Noah said, not just for the fraud, for lying about it under oath. Lila wanted to feel relieved, wanted to feel like this was finally the moment when Graham would get what he deserved. Instead, she just felt tired. He's going to fight harder now, she said. He's going to know we have him cornered, and cornered animals are dangerous. Let him fight. We have the evidence. We have his own words contradicting each other. And now we have my entire legal team building a case that'll hold up in court. That could take months, years even. I don't care how long it takes. Noah's voice was hard. I'm going to make sure he can't do this to anyone else. His phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression went dark. It's my CFO, he said, answering. David, what's... He stopped, listening, his face going pale. When? Another pause. No, don't confirm anything. I'm on my way. He hung up and looked at Lila. Graham just called an emergency board meeting. He's trying to force a vote to remove me as CEO. The words hung in the air like a bomb. Can he do that? Margaret asked. If he gets enough board members on his side, yes. And he's had 6 years to build relationships with them. 6 years to make them trust him. Noah grabbed his coat. I need to get to that meeting. Now. We're coming with you, Lila said. No, this is company business. You can't... Graham made it my business the moment he walked into that diner. If he's using me to discredit you, I deserve to be there to defend myself. Noah looked like he wanted to argue, but Margaret cut him off. She's right, and you need all the allies you can get right now. Noah's jaw worked. Fine, but you stay quiet unless I tell you otherwise. If this goes wrong, we'll already be in the middle of it, Lila finished. Let's go. The drive to Noah's company headquarters took 15 minutes. The building was bigger than the bank, more modern, with the company logo displayed prominently over the entrance. Lila had seen it before, driving past, but she'd never imagined she'd be walking inside. Marcus led them through security, which took one look at Noah and waved them through. The elevator ride to the executive floor was silent, tense. When the doors opened, Lila could hear raised voices coming from a conference room down the hall. They've already started, Noah said. They walked in to find 10 people seated around a massive table, men and women in expensive suits, all of them turning to stare when Noah entered. Graham sat at the far end, his expression carefully neutral. Noah, one of the men said, older, white hair, the kind of face that said he'd been making important decisions for decades. We weren't expecting you. I wasn't expecting to be ambushed, Robert, but here we are. Robert's expression tightened. Graham raised some concerning allegations. We felt it was important to address them immediately. Allegations about what? Graham spoke for the first time. About your judgment, about your willingness to pursue a personal vendetta at the expense of the company. That's rich coming from you. I'm trying to protect this company. The merger we've been working on for months is in jeopardy because you've decided to believe unsubstantiated accusations from a woman with a documented history of instability. Lila felt every eye in the room turn to her. She wanted to shrink back, to disappear. But she'd spent 3 years disappearing, not anymore. The accusations aren't unsubstantiated, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. I have documentation, evidence that Graham Pierce facilitated fraud in the Clearwater acquisition and lied to federal investigators about his involvement. The room erupted, everyone talking at once, demanding proof, asking questions, looking between Lila and Graham like they couldn't believe what they were hearing. Robert held up a hand for silence. That's a serious accusation, Ms. Hart, Lila Hart. Ms. Hart, do you have proof of these allegations? I do. She has documents she's taken out of context, Graham said smoothly. Documents that were part of a closed SEC investigation that found no wrongdoing. The investigation was buried, Lila shot back. You paid off the investigators and destroyed my career to keep me quiet. That's a lie. Then explain the email you sent this morning. Noah pulled out his phone, finding the message his legal team had forwarded. The one where you admitted to personally vetting the Clearwater deal. The same deal you told the SE. You had no direct knowledge of. Graham's face went carefully blank. I don't know what you're talking about. I have the email right here, sent from your address to the entire board at 10:15 this morning. Noah looked around the table. How many of you received it? Slowly, reluctantly, several hands went up. And how many of you remember Graham testifying to the SEC that he wasn't directly involved in the Clearwater acquisition? The hands stayed up, but now people were looking at Graham with suspicion instead of support. Graham stood up. This is absurd. You're twisting my words. I'm reading your own emails back to you. Noah, listen to me. No, you listen. Noah's voice cut like a blade. I've spent the last 6 hours reviewing every deal you've touched in this company. Every acquisition, every merger, every partnership. And you know what I found? The room had gone silent. A pattern. The same pattern Lila found 3 years ago. Companies with financials that are too clean, too perfect. Subsidiaries that appear and disappear. Money moving through channels that don't make sense unless someone's trying to hide where it came from. That's speculation. It's evidence. And my legal team is building a case that'll prove it. Graham's expression finally cracked. You're destroying everything we've built over the word of a waitress who couldn't hack it in the real world. I'm protecting everything we've built from you. They stared at each other across the conference table, and Lila could see the moment Graham realized he'd lost. Not the battle. He'd keep fighting that. But this moment, this room, these people who'd trusted him. He looked around the table, seeing the doubt on their faces, the questions forming. You'll regret this, he said to Noah. Maybe. But at least I'll be able to sleep at night. Graham grabbed his coat and walked out. The door slammed behind him hard enough to make everyone flinch. Robert looked at Noah. This is going to be a mess. I know. The merger? I'll handle it, but I'm not moving forward with any deal Graham had his hands in until we've verified every single piece of data. That could take months. Then it takes months. Another board member spoke up, a woman with sharp eyes and an expensive watch. What about Ms. Hart's allegations? If Graham really did commit fraud, then we'll cooperate fully with any investigation, and we'll make sure it doesn't happen again. The room dissolved into questions, concerns, logistics. Lila stood against the wall, watching it all unfold, feeling like she'd just set off a bomb and was watching the explosion in slow motion. Margaret came to stand beside her. You did it, she said quietly. Did what? Told the truth. Made them listen. Lila looked at the faces around the table, powerful people, rich people, people who made decisions that affected thousands of lives. And they were listening. Not to Graham this time. To her. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it just felt like the beginning of something much bigger and more complicated than she'd ever imagined. Noah caught her eye across the room and gave her a small nod. For the first time in 3 years, Lila thought maybe, just maybe, she wasn't going to lose this time. The board meeting dragged on for another 2 hours, but the damage was done. Graham's carefully constructed reputation had started to crack, and once people saw the fractures, they couldn't unsee them. Robert called for a recess, and the board members filed out in clusters, whispering to each other, their faces tight with worry. Noah stayed behind, his hands braced on the conference table like he was holding himself upright through sheer will. That could have gone worse, he said finally. Could have gone better too, Lila said. Yeah. He straightened up, rolling his shoulders. But they're questioning him now. That's a start. Margaret had been quiet through most of the meeting, but now she spoke up. What happens next? Legal review, forensic accounting. We go through every deal Graham touched with a microscope. Noah rubbed his eyes. It's going to be ugly and expensive, and it's going to tank our stock price when word gets out. But it's the right thing to do. Doesn't make it easier. Lila's phone buzzed. She pulled it out and felt her stomach drop when she saw the message. Unknown number. You should have stayed quiet. Now everyone you care about is going to pay for your mistake.
Her hands started shaking. Noah noticed immediately. "What is it?" She showed him the phone. His expression went dark. "Marcus?" he called. The security guard appeared in the doorway. "I need a trace on this number, now!" Marcus took the phone, studied the message.
"I'll have our tech team on it in 5 minutes." He disappeared and Noah turned back to Lila.
"Graham's getting desperate. He's threatening people I care about. Who does he think—" She stopped, her blood going cold. "The diner, Marcus, and the staff. They're the only people I'll send security there immediately." "Noah, I can't ask you to—" "You're not asking. I'm doing it." He was already on his phone barking orders to someone. 3-person team to Maple Street Diner.
I want eyes on all entrances and I want daily reports on anyone suspicious coming through. When he hung up, Lila felt like she couldn't breathe. This is getting out of control. This was always going to get out of control. The moment you decided to speak up, Graham was going to fight back with everything he had. Noah's voice softened slightly. "But you're not alone in this. You need to understand that. I've been alone for 3 years. I don't know how to not be alone." Margaret came over and put a hand on Lila's shoulder. "Then it's time to learn." Before Lila could respond, Marcus came back in, his expression grim. "Number's a burner phone, untraceable, but the message was sent from a location about 3 blocks from here." "He's close," Noah said. "He's watching," Marcus corrected, "waiting to see what we do next." The thought made Lila's skin crawl. Graham out there somewhere, tracking their movements, planning his next move. She'd spent 3 years trying to be invisible, and now she was exposed in the worst possible way. "I should go home," she said. "Get some distance from all this." "Absolutely not." Noah's response was immediate. "Your apartment is the first place he'll look. So what am I supposed to do? Hide forever?" "You're supposed to let me help you. Let us help you." He gestured to include Margaret and Marcus. "We have resources, safe places, legal protection. And when this is all over, when Graham's either in jail or he's found a way to wriggle out of this like he did before," Lila's voice rose. "What then? Do I just go back to my apartment and pretend I'm safe?" "We're not going to let him wriggle out of it. You can't promise that." "No," Noah admitted, "but I can promise I'll do everything in my power to make sure he faces consequences for what he's done." Lila wanted to believe him, but she'd learned the hard way that powerful people didn't face consequences the same way normal people did. They had lawyers and connections and money to make problems disappear. She'd been a problem that disappeared. Margaret's phone rang. She glanced at it and frowned. "It's the diner. Marcus, the cook. Marcus, not..." She gestured at Noah's security guard. "He says someone came by asking questions about me." Everyone went still. "What kind of questions?" Noah asked. Margaret answered the call, putting it on speaker. "Marcus? It's Margaret. What's going on?" "Hey, Mrs. C." Marcus's voice came through tinny but clear. "Sorry to bother you, but this guy came in about 20 minutes ago. Said he was looking for you, asked if you'd been here, wanted to know if you were okay after the storm." "What did he look like?" "Older guy, expensive suit. Had this smile that didn't reach his eyes, you know?" Lila and Noah exchanged a look. "Graham, what did you tell him?" Margaret asked. "Told him I didn't know where you were. Figured if you wanted him to know, you would have told him yourself." Marcus paused. "Did I do the right thing? Guy gave me the creeps." "You did exactly right. Thank you, Marcus." "No problem. You want me to call the cops if he comes back?" "Yes. And Marcus, be careful. This man is dangerous." "Understood. You stay safe too, okay?" Margaret hung up and looked at Noah. "He's going after everyone connected to this. Then we keep everyone connected to this under protection until he's dealt with." Noah turned to his security guard. "I want teams on everyone who was at that diner last night. The cook, the staff, anyone Graham might see as leverage." "That's going to be expensive," Marcus said. "I don't care what it costs." Lila felt the weight of it pressing down on her. All these people, all these resources, all because she'd decided to tell the truth 3 years too late. If she'd just stayed quiet at the diner, if she'd pretended she didn't recognize Graham, none of this would be happening. But Graham would still be committing fraud. Noah's company would still be built on compromised deals. And Lila would still be carrying the weight of what she knew, alone. "I need air," she said. Noah started to protest, but Margaret stopped him. "Let her go. Marcus can go with her. I don't need a babysitter. You need protection, Margaret said firmly. And right now, that's not negotiable. Lila wanted to argue, but she was too tired, too overwhelmed. She let Marcus lead her out of the conference room, down the hallway to a balcony that overlooked the city. The cold air hit her face like a slap, but it was grounding. Real. She leaned against the railing and tried to remember how to breathe normally. Marcus stood a respectful distance away, watching the door, watching the street below, watching everything. You don't have to do this, Lila said. It's my job. Your job is to protect Noah, not me. My job is to protect the people Mr. Calloway cares about. Marcus glanced at her. Right now, that includes you. The words hit harder than they should have. Noah cared about her? They'd known each other for less than 24 hours. He didn't know her. Didn't know what she'd been like before Graham destroyed her career, before she'd spent 3 years hiding in a diner and trying to forget who she used to be. He barely knows me, Lila said. Doesn't matter. He sees something in you, something worth protecting. He sees evidence that can help him take down his business partner. Marcus shook his head. If that's all he saw, he would have taken the documents and sent you home with a security detail. He wouldn't have brought you to a board meeting, wouldn't have put his own reputation on the line to defend you. Lila didn't know what to say to that. She stared out at the city, at the buildings and streets she'd walked for 3 years without really seeing them. Burlington had been a place to hide, a place to be nobody. Now it was the center of a storm that was only getting worse. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. The people you love will suffer for your selfishness. Starting tonight. Her breath caught. Marcus saw her expression and moved closer. What is it? She showed him the message. He swore under his breath and immediately got on his radio, calling for Noah. 2 minutes later, Noah burst through the balcony door, Margaret right behind him. Let me see, he demanded. Lila handed over her phone. Noah read the message, his jaw tightening with every word. He's escalating, he said. He's bluffing, Margaret said, but she didn't sound convinced. He's not. Lila's voice was flat. This is what he does. He finds what you care about and he uses it against you. He did it to me 3 years ago, went after my reputation, my career, my mental health. Now he's going after the people around me because he knows that'll hurt worse. Then we move everyone to secure locations. Now. Noah was already making calls, his voice clipped and professional. I want the diner staff contacted and offered accommodations at the Hampton. Full security. No one goes anywhere alone. They won't understand, Lila said. They'll think I'm being paranoid. They'll understand when I explain that a dangerous man is targeting people associated with this case. Noah finished his call and looked at her. And you're coming to my house. It's gated, secured, monitored 24/7. I can't. Yes, you can, and you will. Noah, I appreciate everything you're doing, but I can't just move into your house like some kind of refugee. Why not? Because it's... Lila struggled to find the words. It's too much. You've already done too much. I haven't done nearly enough. Noah's voice dropped. Graham destroyed your life 3 years ago because you tried to do the right thing. I'm not going to let him destroy what's left of it now. This isn't your responsibility. Yes, it is. The moment I brought him into my company, the moment I trusted him with my business, I made it my responsibility. Noah moved closer. You stood up for the truth when no one else would. The least I can do is make sure you're safe while we finish what you started. Lila felt something crack inside her chest. She'd spent so long being alone, fighting alone, surviving alone. The idea of letting someone else carry part of the weight felt foreign, dangerous. But she was so tired of carrying it by herself. Okay, she said quietly, but just until this is resolved. However long it takes. Marcus drove them to Noah's house in the same black SUV, taking a route that wound through residential neighborhoods and doubled back twice to make sure they weren't being followed. Margaret dozed in the passenger seat, exhausted from a night and day that had pushed her past any reasonable limit. Lila stared out the window and tried not to think about what she was doing. Moving into a stranger's house. Accepting protection from someone she'd met during a snowstorm. Trusting that Noah was who he said he was, and not just another version of Graham with better PR. The house was in the hills outside Burlington, surrounded by tall pines and a stone wall that probably cost more than Lila had made in the last 3 years combined. Marcus punched in a code at the gate, and they drove up a long driveway to a house that was somehow both massive and understated. "This is where you live?" Lila asked. "Home sweet home," Noah said, but there was no warmth in his voice, just exhaustion. Inside, the house was beautiful in the way that expensive things were beautiful, carefully designed, perfectly maintained, utterly devoid of personality. It looked like a magazine spread, like no one actually lived there. A woman appeared from the kitchen, 50s, gray hair pulled back in a neat bun, wearing an apron. "Mr. Calloway, I wasn't expecting you home so early." "Change of plans, Helen. This is my mother, Margaret, and this is Lila Hart. They'll be staying with us for a while." Helen's eyebrows rose slightly, but her expression remained professionally neutral. "Of course. Should I prepare the guest rooms?" "Please. And Helen?" Noah's voice softened. "Where's Emma?" "Napping. She wore herself out playing in the snow this morning." Something in Noah's entire demeanor changed. The hard edges softened. The exhaustion lifted slightly. "I'll check on her in a minute. Can you show my mother and Lila to their rooms?" Helen nodded and gestured for them to follow. They climbed a wide staircase to the second floor, where Helen opened doors to rooms that were bigger than Lila's entire apartment. "This one's yours, Ms. Hart. Bathroom's through there. If you need anything, just use the intercom." Lila stepped into the room and felt immediately out of place. The bed was huge, covered in white linens that looked like they'd never been slept in. The furniture was dark wood, expensive. A window looked out over the woods behind the house. It was beautiful, and it felt like a cage. "Thank you," she managed. Helen left, and Lila sank onto the edge of the bed. Her phone buzzed again. She almost didn't want to look, but ignoring it wouldn't make it go away. This time, it wasn't a text. It was a photo. The diner, taken from across the street, through the window. Marcus was visible inside, wiping down the counter. The message below the photo read, "Such a shame if something happened to this place." Lila's hand shook as she forwarded the message to Noah. Within 30 seconds, he was at her door. "He's watching the diner," she said, showing him the photo. Noah's expression went dark. "I'm calling the police. This is harassment. Threats. They can't do anything unless he actually does something. You know that." Lila stood up, pacing. "He's too smart to make an explicit threat. Too careful to get caught doing anything that'll land him in jail. Then we make him get sloppy. We push him until he makes a mistake. And how many people get hurt while we're waiting for that mistake?" Noah didn't have an answer for that. A small voice from the hallway made them both turn. "Daddy?" A little girl stood in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. She had dark hair that was mussed from sleep, and she was wearing pajamas with cartoon characters on them. Emma. Noah's entire face transformed. "Hey, sweetheart, did we wake you?" "I heard voices." Emma looked at Lila with open curiosity. "Who's that?" "This is Lila. She's a friend. She's going to be staying with us for a little while." Emma studied Lila with the unfiltered assessment that only children could pull off. "Are you Daddy's girlfriend?" "No," Lila said quickly. We're just... Lila's helping me with some work stuff," Noah said, scooping Emma up. "And she needed a safe place to stay for a few days." "Like a sleepover?" "Kind of like that." Emma seemed to accept this explanation. She looked at Lila again. "Do you like pancakes?" Yes." "Good. Helen makes the best pancakes. You can have some with me tomorrow morning." Before Lila could respond, Emma had already moved on to the next thought. "Daddy, can we build another snowman? The one we made yesterday fell over." "Maybe later, sweetheart. I have some things I need to take care of first." Emma's face fell. "You're always busy." The words landed like a punch. Lila could see it in the way Noah's shoulders tensed, the way his expression flickered with guilt. "I know," he said quietly. "I'm sorry. You said you'd spend more time with me after the big meeting, but you're still working all the time." "Emma, it's okay." But the way she said it suggested it very much wasn't okay. "I'm used to it." She wriggled out of Noah's arms and padded back down the hallway, her small shoulders hunched in a way that made Lila's chest ache. Noah stood there, looking wrecked. "I'm a terrible father," he said. "You're doing the best you can." That's what terrible fathers tell themselves.
He ran a hand through his hair. She's right. I'm always working, always dealing with the next crisis. I barely see her except at bedtime, and half the time I'm too exhausted to read her more than one story before I pass out. You're trying to build something, provide for her. I'm trying to prove something that doesn't need proving, and she's the one paying the price. Lila didn't know what to say to that. She'd never been a parent,
Never had to balance the impossible weight of work and family and everything that came with trying to do both well. But she knew what it felt like to sacrifice everything for something you thought mattered, only to realize too late that you'd lost the things that actually did. Talk to her, Lila said. Tell her what's going on. Kids understand more than we think they do. She's 4. So tell her a 4-year-old version of the truth, that you're dealing with something important, something that's going to take up a lot of your time, but that you're going to try harder to be there for her. Noah looked at her like she'd said something profound instead of obvious. When did you get so smart about parenting? I'm not. I'm just smart about what happens when the people who are supposed to be there aren't. The words came out more bitter than she'd intended. Noah studied her face. Your parents? Complicated story. We seem to specialize in those. Lila's phone buzzed again. She braced herself for another threat, another photo, another reminder that Graham was out there watching. But this time it was from an unknown number she didn't recognize. The message was short. Meet me. Alone. Tonight. Or everyone you care about will suffer the consequences. Address attached. Below was a location, an address in an industrial area on the outskirts of town. Noah read it over her shoulder and swore. You're not going. I don't have a choice. Yes, you do. You let me handle this. I'll bring security, we'll record everything, and we'll nail him for making threats. And what if he follows through on those threats before you can stop him? What if something happens to Marcus or the diner or... She stopped. I can't risk it. So you're just going to walk into whatever trap he's setting? I'm going to hear what he has to say. And then I'm going to make a decision. Lila, this is my fight, Noah. It always has been. You've been dragged into it, and I appreciate everything you're doing, but I can't let you take risks for me. Too bad. I'm taking them anyway. Noah pulled out his phone. Marcus, I need a team ready in 2 hours. Full surveillance equipment. And I want backup standing by. Noah, no. I'm not letting you go alone. Period. You can argue all you want, but it's not negotiable. They stared at each other, and Lila could see the determination in his eyes. The same determination that had probably built his company, that had kept him going through whatever personal hell he'd been through. She should have been angry. Should have insisted on handling this herself. Instead, she felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Relief. Margaret appeared in the doorway, looking between them. What's happening? Graham wants to meet, Noah said. Tonight. Then we call the police. And tell them what? That he sent a threatening text from an untraceable number? They won't do anything. So what are you going to do? We're going to that meeting. We're going to record everything. And we're going to get him to confess to something we can actually use in court. Margaret's expression hardened. I'm coming with you. Mom, absolutely not. Someone needs to be there who isn't emotionally invested in destroying Graham. Someone who can be a neutral witness. She held up a hand before Noah could protest. I've spent 4 years watching from the sidelines. I'm not sitting this one out. Noah looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Margaret's expression stopped him. Maybe he saw the same thing Lila had seen that first night in the diner. A woman who'd spent too long being passive, who'd decided it was time to stand up. Fine, he said. But you stay in the car. Both of you stay in the car while I go in with Marcus and the team. We'll see, Margaret said, in a tone that suggested they absolutely wouldn't see. Lila's phone buzzed one more time. She looked at it and felt her blood run cold. It was a photo of Emma, taken through the window of the house. She was in the playroom, building something with blocks, completely unaware that someone was watching her. The message below. Cute kid. It would be a shame if she grew up without a father. Lila showed Noah the photo. His face went white, then red, then settled into something cold and dangerous. He just threatened my daughter, he said, his voice deadly quiet. Noah, he just threatened Emma. Noah was already moving, pulling out his phone, barking orders. I want every inch of this property searched. I want to know how someone got close enough to take that photo. And I want it done 5 minutes ago." Within seconds, the house erupted into controlled chaos. Security guards appeared from nowhere, spreading out across the grounds. Helen took Emma upstairs to her room, away from the windows. Margaret stood in the hallway, her face pale, but her spine straight. Lila felt like she was drowning. This had all started with one act of kindness, letting a freezing woman into the diner during a storm. And now a 4-year-old girl was being threatened because Lila had decided to tell the truth about fraud that happened 3 years ago. "I should leave," she said. "Get as far away from here as possible. If I'm gone, Graham won't have any reason to—" "If you leave, you're dead within 24 hours, Noah said bluntly. "Graham's not going to let you walk away. Not now. Not when you have evidence that can destroy him." "Then what am I supposed to do?" "You're supposed to trust me. Trust that I can protect my daughter and you at the same time." "Can you?" The question hung in the air. Noah's jaw worked. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I'm going to try." Marcus came back inside, his expression grim. "We found footprints in the snow near the west side of the house, fresh. Whoever took that photo was here less than 30 minutes ago." "Did you find them?" "They're gone. Looks like they went back through the woods." Noah swore viciously. "Double the security. I want armed guards on every entrance. And I want cameras on every window facing the woods." "Already in progress." Noah turned to Lila. "Pack whatever you need. We're going to that meeting tonight, and we're ending this." "How?" "However we have to." The certainty in his voice should have been reassuring. Instead, it just made Lila more afraid. Because she'd seen what happened when people like Graham felt cornered. They didn't surrender. They burned everything down rather than admit defeat. And she had no idea if any of them would survive the fire. They left for the meeting at 8 o'clock, when the winter darkness had turned Burlington into something unfamiliar and hostile. Marcus drove with 2 additional security vehicles following at a distance. Close enough to intervene, far enough to avoid spooking Graham if he was watching. Lila sat in the back seat next to Margaret, her hands clenched in her lap. Noah was up front, his phone out, coordinating with his legal team and making sure everyone knew where they were going and what the plan was. Except there wasn't really a plan. Not one that accounted for all the variables, all the ways this could go wrong. "You don't have to do this," Margaret said quietly. "Yeah, I do." "No, you don't. You could walk away, disappear, start over somewhere else." Lila had thought about it, spent the last few hours thinking about nothing else. But running hadn't worked 3 years ago, and it wouldn't work now. Graham knew who she was, knew where she'd been hiding, and he'd proven today that he was willing to go after anyone connected to her. "If I run, he wins," Lila said. "And I'm so tired of him winning." Margaret squeezed her hand. "Then we make sure he doesn't. Not this time." The industrial area was on the south side of town, past the warehouses and distribution centers that serviced Burlington's commercial district. During the day, it was probably busy with trucks and workers. At night, it was deserted, just empty lots and buildings with dark windows. The address Graham had sent led them to an old factory that looked like it hadn't been operational in decades. Broken windows, graffiti on the walls, snow piled up against a loading dock that had seen better days. "This is wrong," Marcus said immediately. "We shouldn't be here." "Agreed," Noah said. "But we're already here, so let's make it count." Marcus pulled the SUV into the parking lot and killed the engine. The backup vehicles parked at a distance, their occupants invisible behind tinted windows. Lila's phone buzzed. Another message from Graham. "Come inside. Alone. Or I start making good on my promises." She showed Noah. His jaw tightened. "Absolutely not. He's not going to talk if you come in with me." "I don't care. You're not going in there alone." "Noah, no." His voice was final. "We do this together or we don't do it at all." Lila wanted to argue, but the look on his face stopped her. This wasn't about control or pride. It was about something deeper, something that had to do with Emma's photo, with years of building walls to keep people safe, with the fear of losing something before he'd even figured out what it was. "Okay," she said. "Together." They got out of the SUV, Marcus flanking them, his hand near his waist where Lila knew he was carrying a gun. The cold was brutal, cutting through her coat like it wasn't there. Snow crunched under their feet as they approached the factory entrance. The door was already open. Inside, the factory was dark except for a single light in the center of the main floor. It cast long shadows across machinery that had rusted into abstract sculptures. The air smelled like oil and decay. Graham stood under the light, alone. Or at least he appeared to be alone. Lila's eyes kept darting to the shadows, looking for the men he'd had with him at the bank, looking for any sign this was an ambush. "You brought company," Graham said. "I specifically said to come alone." "And I specifically don't trust you," Lila shot back. Graham's smile was thin. "Smart. You're learning." His gaze shifted to Noah. "I was hoping we could talk without an audience, partner to partner." "We're not partners anymore," Noah said. "Is that official? Has the board voted?" "They will, as soon as they see all the evidence." "Evidence that's been sitting in a safety deposit box for 3 years?" Graham laughed. "Evidence from a disgraced analyst with a history of mental instability? You think that's going to hold up?" "I think it's going to raise enough questions that people will start digging, and once they start digging, they're going to find all the other deals you've corrupted." Graham's expression flickered, just for a second, but Lila saw it. Fear. He was scared. "Good. I came here to make you an offer," Graham said. "Both of you." "Not interested," Noah said immediately. "You haven't heard it yet." "Don't need to. Whatever you're selling, we're not buying." Graham ignored him and looked at Lila. "I'll give you $5 million. Cash. Offshore account. Completely untraceable. In exchange, you destroy that evidence and you disappear. New identity, new life, anywhere in the world you want to go." The number hit Lila like a physical blow. $5 million. More money than she'd make in 10 lifetimes waiting tables. Enough to start over properly, not just hiding, but actually building something new. "And if I say no," she asked, "then I destroy you. Again. And this time, I'll make sure there's nothing left." Graham's voice was calm, conversational. "I'll go after your friends at the diner. I'll go after anyone who's ever helped you. I'll make their lives so miserable they'll wish they'd never met you. You're threatening innocent people. I'm protecting my interests, just like you're protecting yours." Noah stepped forward. "And what about me? What's my offer?" "You don't get one. You're smart enough to understand why." "Enlighten me." "Because you have too much to lose. Your company, your reputation, your daughter." Graham let that last word hang in the air. Emma's what, 4 now? 5? That's a vulnerable age. Lots of things can happen to children when their parents aren't paying attention. Noah moved so fast that Marcus barely had time to react. 1 second he was standing next to Lila. The next he had Graham by the collar, slamming him against a rusted support beam. "Say her name again," Noah said, his voice deadly quiet. "Say my daughter's name one more time and see what happens." Graham didn't flinch. "You're proving my point. You're too emotional, too attached. That makes you weak. And you're a sociopath who thinks money solves everything." Noah shoved him harder. "It doesn't. Not this time." Marcus put a hand on Noah's shoulder. "Boss, we need him talking, not bleeding." Noah held Graham there for another few seconds before letting go. Graham straightened his collar, his expression never changing. "I'm trying to be reasonable," Graham said. "I'm offering a way out of this that doesn't destroy everyone involved." "You mean a way out that lets you keep stealing?" Lila said. "I mean a way that acknowledges reality. You think exposing me is going to fix anything? It's going to tank Noah's company, put hundreds of people out of work, destroy investor confidence in the entire tech sector." Graham spread his hands. "All that damage, all that pain, for what? So you can feel righteous? So justice gets served." "Justice?" Graham laughed, bitter and sharp. "There's no such thing. There's only power and the people who know how to use it." "You're wrong," Margaret said. Everyone turned. She'd been so quiet that Lila had almost forgotten she was there, standing just inside the doorway with her arms crossed. Graham looked at her like she was an insect. "And who are you again?" "I'm the woman whose son you've been manipulating for 6 years. I'm the grandmother of the child you just threatened." Margaret walked forward until she was standing between Noah and Graham. "And I'm someone who's spent enough time around men like you to know exactly what you are." "Oh? And what am I?" A coward. Margaret's voice was steady, clear. You hide behind money and threats because you're terrified of being exposed for the fraud you really are, not the financial kind, the human kind. Graham's smile turned cruel. That's touching, really. But your opinion means nothing to me. It should, because I'm the only person in this room who doesn't have anything to lose. Margaret moved closer. My son already hates me. I've already lost years with my granddaughter. My life is already a mess, which means I can tell the truth without worrying about the consequences. What truth? That you're finished, whether Lila takes your money or not, whether Noah backs down or not. You're finished because we all see you now, and once people see you for what you are, they can't unsee it. Something in Graham's expression shifted. The mask slipped just slightly. You're all making a mistake, he said. Probably, Noah agreed, but it's our mistake to make. Graham pulled out his phone. Last chance. Take the money, Lila. Walk away. Or I make one call and your life becomes a nightmare. It's already been a nightmare, thanks to you. Then let me make it worse. He dialed a number. Lila's heart hammered in her chest. This was it. Whatever he'd been planning, whatever leverage he thought he had, he was about to use it. The phone rang once, twice. Then a voice answered, tinny through the speaker, but audible. It's done, the voice said. The file's uploaded. Should go live in about 5 minutes. Graham smiled. Perfect. Thank you. He hung up and looked at Lila. I just released your complete medical history to every major news outlet in the region. The therapy sessions after your breakdown, the medications, the psychiatric evaluation that said you showed signs of paranoid delusion. Lila felt the floor drop out from under her. Those records are sealed, she whispered. Money unseals a lot of things. By tomorrow morning, everyone in Burlington is going to know exactly how unstable you really are. Graham's smile widened. Good luck getting anyone to believe your fraud allegations after that. Noah was already on his phone, calling someone. I need our PR team to kill a story. Medical records illegally obtained. Yes, right now. I don't care what it costs. But Lila barely heard him. She was stuck in the moment 3 years ago when Graham had first started spreading rumors about her mental state, when she'd gone from respected analyst to cautionary tale, when the whispers had started following her everywhere she went. It was happening again. Why? She asked Graham. Why do you hate me so much? I don't hate you. I don't feel anything about you. Oh, he said it like it was a simple fact. You're just a problem that needs to be solved, and I solve problems. By destroying people? By doing whatever's necessary to protect what's mine. Something in Lila snapped. 3 years of anger, 3 years of shame, 3 years of carrying the weight of what Graham had done to her. It all came rushing out. I was good at my job, she said, her voice shaking. I was smart and dedicated, and I believed in doing things right. And you destroyed that. You took everything I'd worked for and you burned it down because I threatened your income. You threatened my freedom. There's a difference. You could have fixed it, could have come clean about the Clearwater deal, accepted the consequences, moved on, but you chose to destroy me instead. I chose to survive, just like you're choosing to survive now by coming after me. Graham shrugged. We're not that different, you and I. We're nothing alike, aren't we? You're willing to destroy Noah's company to get revenge on me. How is that different from what I did to you? Because I'm telling the truth. You were lying. The truth is whatever people believe, and right now they're going to believe you're mentally unstable. Marcus's radio crackled. He listened for a moment, then his expression went dark. Boss, he said to Noah, we've got company. 3 vehicles just pulled into the lot. Everyone froze. Who? Noah asked. Don't know yet, but they're armed. Graham smiled. Insurance, in case our conversation didn't go the way I wanted. Noah turned on him. You called in mercenaries? I called in professionals, people who understand that sometimes problems need permanent solutions. Lila's blood went cold. He wasn't talking about discrediting her anymore. He was talking about making sure she couldn't testify, making sure the evidence never saw the light of day. He was talking about murder. Marcus was already moving, positioning himself between them and the door. We need to go now. There's a back exit, Margaret said suddenly. I saw it when we came in. How do you... Noah started. I pay attention. Come on. They ran. through the maze of rusted machinery and collapsed conveyor belts, following Margaret as she led them toward the back of the factory. Behind them, Lila could hear voices, heavy footsteps, the sound of weapons being loaded. Graham's voice called out, echoing through the empty space. "You can't run from this, Noah. I'll find you. I'll find all of you." They burst through a back door into an alley filled with snow. The cold hit Lila's lungs like knives. Marcus was on his radio calling for the backup vehicles to swing around. "This way," he said, leading them toward the street. They'd made it maybe 50 feet when the first gunshot rang out. Everyone hit the ground. Marcus shielded Noah and Margaret with his body, while Lila pressed herself against a dumpster, her heart trying to escape through her chest. More shots, the sound of glass breaking, an engine roaring to life. One of the backup vehicles came screaming around the corner, fishtailing on the snow. The door flew open. "Get in!" the driver shouted. They ran, piled into the vehicle. Marcus was the last one in, and they were moving before he'd even closed the door. More gunshots behind them. The rear window spiderwebbed but didn't shatter. "Bulletproof glass," the driver said. We're okay. They weren't okay. Nothing about this was okay. Noah had his phone out making calls. "I need police at the old Riverside factory. Shots fired. Armed assailants. Yes, right now." Lila sat in the back seat, shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Margaret had her arm around her, holding her steady. "It's okay," Margaret kept saying. We're safe. But they weren't safe. Graham had just tried to have them killed, and he'd released Lila's medical records to destroy her credibility before she could destroy him. They'd lost. Noah hung up and looked at Lila. "We're going to the police station, all of us. We're filing a formal complaint, and we're turning over all the evidence." "They won't believe me, not after what Graham just did." "They'll believe the documents, they'll believe the pattern of fraud, and they'll believe that Graham Pierce just tried to have us murdered. He'll say we attacked him, that he was defending himself." "With professional mercenaries?" Noah shook his head. No, this was too far, even for him. Marcus's radio crackled again. He listened, then swore. "What?" Noah demanded. "Graham's gone. Left in one of the vehicles before the police arrived. And his guys scattered. Nobody got arrested." Lila closed her eyes. Of course Graham had an escape plan. He always had an escape plan. "We still have the evidence," Noah said. "We still have—" His phone rang. He looked at the screen and went pale. "It's my house," he answered. "Helen? What's—" He listened, his face draining of color. "I'm on my way. Don't touch anything. Call the police." He hung up and looked at Marcus. Someone broke into the house. Emma's room. The world stopped. "Is she—" Margaret couldn't finish the question. "She's fine. Helen took her to this panic room when the alarms went off, but—" Noah's voice cracked. "They left something on her bed. A note." "What did it say?" "Next time I won't miss." Lila thought she might throw up. This was her fault, all of it. She'd brought this into Noah's life, into Emma's life. A 4-year-old child was being threatened because Lila had decided to tell the truth. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." Noah looked at her, and his expression was devastated. "This isn't your fault." "Yes, it is. I should have stayed quiet. Should have just taken his money and disappeared." "No." Margaret's voice was firm. "You should have been protected. By the system, by the people who were supposed to care about truth. Instead, you were abandoned, and now we're all paying the price for that failure." "My daughter's paying the price, so we make sure it stops. Now, tonight." Margaret looked at Noah. "What do we need to do?" Noah stared out the window, his jaw working. Lila could see him thinking, calculating, trying to find a move that wouldn't cost him everything. "We go public," he said finally. "All of it. The fraud, the threats, the attempted murder. We release everything to the press before Graham can spin it." "Your company?" Lila started. "I don't care about the company. I care about my daughter being safe, and she won't be safe until Graham is in prison." He made another call. Lila couldn't hear who answered, but Noah's voice was absolute. "I need you to call every media contact we have. Tell them I'm holding a press conference tomorrow morning at 9. Tell them it's about corporate fraud, criminal conspiracy, and attempted murder. Tell them I have evidence, and tell them they don't want to miss this. He hung up and looked at Lila. You ready for the whole world to know your story? No. She wasn't ready. Would never be ready. But ready or not, it was happening.
Yeah, she said. Let's burn it all down. The press conference was held in the ballroom of the Marriott downtown. Noah's PR team had worked through the night to set it up, and by 8:30 in the morning, the room was packed with reporters, cameras, and people who'd come to watch a billionaire either save his reputation or destroy it. Lila stood backstage with Margaret, watching through a gap in the curtain as Noah took the podium. He looked exhausted. They all did, but there was a steel in his spine that hadn't been there yesterday. Thank you all for coming, he began. I'm here today to discuss a pattern of corporate fraud that has compromised multiple acquisitions in my company's portfolio. This fraud was perpetrated by Graham Pierce, my former business partner, and it has been ongoing for at least 5 years. The room erupted with questions. Noah held up a hand. I'll take questions after I've presented the evidence, but first I want to introduce you to someone who tried to expose this fraud 3 years ago and was destroyed for her efforts. He gestured to the wings. Lila's stomach clenched. You don't have to do this, Margaret whispered. Yes, I do. Lila walked out onto the stage. The lights were blinding. The cameras felt like weapons pointed at her chest. Noah moved aside to let her approach the microphone. My name is Lila Hart, she said, her voice shaking slightly. 3 years ago, I was a financial analyst at Pierce & Henley. I discovered evidence of fraud in a major acquisition. When I reported it, Graham Pierce systematically destroyed my career, my reputation, and my life. She could hear murmurs in the crowd, could imagine what they were thinking. Here's the unstable woman Graham had told them about. Yesterday, Graham Pierce released my private medical records in an attempt to discredit me before I could share this evidence. Those records were obtained illegally and released without my consent. But I'm not here to talk about my mental health. I'm here to talk about fraud. Noah stepped up beside her, pulling up a screen behind them. It showed the first of the documents from the safety deposit box. Clearwater's real financials next to the doctored versions. This is what Graham Pierce didn't want you to see, Noah said. Evidence of systematic manipulation of financial data to inflate company values and facilitate fraudulent acquisitions. They spent the next 30 minutes walking through the evidence. Every document, every email, every pattern that Lila had found 3 years ago and that Noah had verified in the present. By the time they were done, the room had gone silent. Graham Pierce is a criminal, Noah said, and I'm formally requesting that the Securities and Exchange Commission open a full investigation into his activities. Additionally, I'm pursuing criminal charges for fraud, witness intimidation, and attempted murder. That got the room talking again. Attempted murder was a hell of an escalation. Last night, Graham Pierce lured us to an abandoned factory and had armed mercenaries try to kill us to prevent this information from becoming public. He also broke into my home and left a threatening note on my daughter's bed. Noah's voice cracked on that last part. He took a breath, steadied himself. I'm not here to save my company's reputation. I'm here to make sure a dangerous man faces consequences for his actions. If that means my company takes a hit, if that means I lose investors or board members or partnerships, so be it. Some things are more important than money. The questions came all at once, a wall of sound that was almost physical. Noah fielded them calmly, professionally, never wavering from the story. Lila watched from beside him, feeling strangely disconnected from her own body. This was it. The moment she'd been too scared to create 3 years ago. The truth exposed, undeniable. Graham couldn't bury this, couldn't spin it, couldn't make it go away. After 45 minutes, Noah wrapped up the press conference. The evidence has been provided to federal investigators. I have nothing further to say until they've completed their review. They walked off stage to a barrage of shouted questions. Margaret was waiting in the wings, her face wet with tears. You did it, she said to Lila. You actually did it. Lila couldn't speak, couldn't process what had just happened. Noah's phone rang. He looked at the screen and his expression shifted to something Lila couldn't quite read. It's the police, he said. Graham's been arrested. The words didn't feel real. What? They picked him up 20 minutes ago. Fraud charges, witness intimidation, and conspiracy to commit murder based on the testimony from the mercenaries at the factory. Noah's smile was grim. Turns out when you hire criminals, they turn on you the moment it's convenient. Lila sank into a chair.
Her legs had stopped working. It was over. Actually, over. 3 years of hiding, 3 years of shame, 3 years of carrying the weight of what Graham had done to her. And it was finally over. She started crying, couldn't help it. Great, gulping sobs that shook her entire body. Margaret knelt beside her, holding her while she fell apart. "It's okay," Margaret kept saying. "You're okay now." Noah stood a few feet away, giving them space, his own eyes suspiciously wet. When Lila could finally breathe again, she looked up at him. "Thank you," she said. "You don't need to thank me. You saved yourself. I just gave you a platform to do it. You gave me more than that. You believed me when nobody else would. Someone should have believed you 3 years ago. I'm sorry it took so long." They sat there in the backstage area while the ballroom emptied out, while Noah's PR team fielded calls, while the story started spreading across every news outlet in the country. By noon, Graham Pierce's face was on every major network. The fraud scandal was the top story everywhere. And Lila's name was finally being mentioned not as the unstable analyst who'd made false accusations, but as the whistleblower who'd exposed corporate corruption. It should have felt like vindication. Instead, it just felt like exhaustion. 3 months later, Lila stood in front of the Maple Street diner, keys in hand. The sale had gone through that morning. The building was hers. It had taken most of the settlement money from Noah's company. He'd insisted on compensating her for what she'd been through, and his lawyers had negotiated an amount that made her dizzy to think about. But she'd wanted this. Wanted to own the place that had been her shelter for 3 years. Marcus the cook came out the front door, grinning. "You ready to be a boss? Terrifying thought, isn't it?" "Little bit." He handed her a coffee. "But you'll figure it out. You always do." Inside, the diner looked the same as it always had. Same worn booths, same flickering lights, same smell of coffee and grease. But it felt different now. It felt like possibility. Lila had spent the last 3 months testifying, giving depositions, working with federal investigators to build the case against Graham. He was awaiting trial on 17 counts of fraud and 3 counts of conspiracy. His lawyers were trying to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecutors weren't budging. He was going to prison. Actually, going to prison. Noah had stepped down as CEO of his company while the board conducted a full audit of every deal in their portfolio. 7 acquisitions had been unwound. 12 executives had been fired. The stock price had tanked, then slowly recovered as investors realized Noah was serious about operating ethically. It had cost him, but he'd survived. The door chimed. Lila turned to see Noah walking in, Emma holding his hand. "We brought you something," Emma announced, holding up a drawing. "I made it myself." It was a picture of the diner, complete with stick figures that Lila assumed were her and Marcus and the other staff. In the corner, Emma had drawn a sun with a smiley face. "It's beautiful," Lila said, crouching down to Emma's level. "Can I hang it on the wall?" "You have to. It's good luck." "Then I definitely will." Emma ran off to examine the jukebox in the corner, and Noah came to stand beside Lila. "How does it feel?" he asked. "Weird, good weird, scary weird. That's how all the best things feel." They'd been having coffee together once a week since the press conference, just talking, figuring out who they were when they weren't in crisis mode. Lila had learned that Noah was funny when he wasn't stressed, that he loved terrible action movies and made pancakes shaped like dinosaurs for Emma every Sunday. She'd learned that she liked him, more than liked him, but neither of them had said anything about it. There was too much healing left to do, too much uncertainty about what came next. Margaret appeared in the doorway, carrying a box. "I brought decorations. Thought you might want to brighten the place up." "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to." Margaret set the box down. "Besides, I need to practice my interior design skills before I redecorate my own apartment." Margaret had moved to Burlington permanently, bought a small place downtown. She and Noah were rebuilding their relationship slowly, carefully, with lots of therapy and honest conversations. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Emma came running back over. "Daddy, can we get pancakes?" "We're not open yet, sweetheart," Noah said. "Actually," Lila said, "I think I can make an exception, just this once." She went behind the counter and started pulling out ingredients. Marcus appeared and took over, shooing her away. "You're the owner now. Owners don't cook on opening day." What do owners do? They sit down and let their staff take care of them for once. So Lila sat in a booth with Noah, Margaret, and Emma, eating pancakes and drinking coffee while Marcus whistled in the kitchen. The morning sun came through the windows, turning everything golden. It wasn't perfect. Lila still had nightmares about Graham sometimes, still felt the weight of those 3 years pressing down on her, still wondered if she'd ever really feel safe again. But she was trying, and she wasn't alone anymore. Noah's hand found hers under the table, his fingers threading through hers carefully, like he was afraid she might pull away. She didn't pull away. Emma was talking about something that happened at preschool, her voice bright and happy. Margaret was listening with the kind of attention that said she'd never take a moment like this for granted again. And Lila sat there, holding Noah's hand, thinking about how strange life was. How one snowstorm, one decision to keep a diner open, one act of kindness toward a freezing stranger could change everything. She'd lost 3 years to Graham's lies. But she'd found something too. Found people who saw her for who she really was. Found the courage to stop hiding. Found a future that looked nothing like the one she'd planned, but somehow felt right anyway. Outside, Burlington was waking up. People walking to work, cars navigating the streets, the world going on like it always did. Inside the diner, pancakes were getting cold and coffee was being refilled, and Emma was asking if she could have extra syrup. And for the first time in 3 years, Lila felt like she was home, not because of the building or the business or even the city, but because of the people sitting across from her, the ones who'd walked through fire with her and somehow made it to the other side. Noah squeezed her hand gently, and when she looked at him, he was smiling. Not the controlled, professional smile she'd first seen, but something real and warm and tentatively hopeful. "You okay?" he asked quietly. Lila thought about it, really thought about it. "Yeah," she said, "I think I am." And for the first time in a very long time, she meant it.